Today's coverage of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening and welcome to round 2 of the NLRL Sunday League Season 3. As always, I am Regan Clark and you join me from the second of our 2 MSV venues on us and our second stop on the calendar here in the UK. As I should say here at the Oulton Park circuit. Founded in 1953, Oulton Park started its life long before its venue as a racing circuit. It was in fact converted parkland from the various farms and gardens of the Oulton estate in the late 18th century. In 1926, a fire destroyed the manor house of the Oulton estate, leaving the land vacant for many, many years. In the 1940s, it would be used as a staging camp and garrison for the United States Army under General Patton. And after the end of World War II, it would remain dormant until it came into the hands of the Mid-Cheshire Car Club, who, with the permission of the land's owner and heir to the estate, Sir Philip Grey Egerton, began development of a racing circuit by the early 1950s. It held races in its founding years under the guise of the Oulton Park International Gold Trophy, one of a small number of coveted and highly regarded non-championship Formula One races. This was a tradition Oulton Park upheld all the way until the turn of the millennium, where it ended in 2004. Whereby which it had already changed hands from Formula 1 to Formula 2, and then to a myriad of different disciplines, including sports car, British F5000, Group 8, Thunder Sports, British F3, F3000, British F2, the British Touring Car Championship, and British GT. In its final 2 years in 2003 and 4, it was under the guise of a historic car racing. In this time, drivers such as Sterling Moss, Roy Salvadori, Jack Brabham, John Surtees, Jackie Stewart, Jackie Ickx, Denny Holm, Ivan Muller, Joachim Winkelhock and Tim Harvey were among those to have won this prestigious race. Outside of this, Oulton Park holds rounds for all things British motorsports, with the British Touring Car Championship, British Superbikes, TCR UK and British GT comprising its yearly itinerary in the year of 2025. Today, however, it holds round 2 of Sunday League Season 3, and bringing up the calendar, of course, as mentioned, it's our second stop for an MSV circuit and our second of 3 for our run in the United Kingdom. We'll be heading east towards the Benelux region of Western Europe for rounds 4 and 5 thereafter, first at Zandvoort in the Netherlands and then Spa before the season midway. And after a spectacular opening round in Brands Hatch, we find ourselves eagerly awaiting where Sunday League can take us today. To recount round 1's results, it was a hectic fight amongst the top 10 for the majority of that race, but after a major climactic incident on the way to the pit lane between the leading cars of Milliston and Silth, it was a decisive first victory in NLRL's history for Ukraine, courtesy of a blindingly fast drive by the number 123 of Alexander Rozhnov for U Amateurs Racing. Ford revelled in a historic first in the Sunday League as being the first of any manufacturer to complete a 1-2-3 rolling finish, as behind Rozhnov finished Cas van Velzen and Axel Cassier. Recounting the standings at large inside of the top 10 after a seriously jam-packed opener, we find Ford on all 3 of these podium steps. They accidentally brought the calendar up, but not far from them then. Heralding the fastest lap of last race is McLaren's Melvin Milliston. He finds himself 4th place by only 3 points off the podium with 27 points in the championship. Rounding out that top 5 then, the number 222 of Hayden Prodger with 24 points ahead of Season 1's champion Christian Lebay with 21 points. Behind him, David Silf in 7th place with 19 points, 4 points ahead of 8th position Kevin Quain with 15 points. 3 points behind him, Bjorn Egil Kalsef on your screens at the moment in 9th position in the championship. Rounding out the top 10 was James Mason at the end of round 1. Having a look then into the Teams Championship as we bring it up here, as you see the regulations for today's race as well. We'll speak more on that in a moment's time, but bringing up the Teams Championship, it's Malwa Racing leading by 11 points to U Amateurs, courtesy of that points haul from Cassier and Lebay at the end of round 1. U Amateurs' solo entry of Alexander Rozhnov sets in 40 points there, putting ahead of MSA Racing by 9 points towards the front of the field. K1 Esports finds themselves in a bit of a straggled position here, far away from the podium and actually closer to the back of the top 5 than anything, as they're 21 points away from MSA and only 2 points ahead of the solo entry of Brabble's Endurance Racing, courtesy of Ronaldo Jr. A new entry as well, Lawnmower Racing, entered at the end of round 1. We already saw its driver, Senna Broines, take to the field in the Audi last Sunday at Brands Hatch. And we also do have a brand new team joining us as well. You'll note on this chart we've yet to see the appearance of Velocity Racing, despite Tadeusz Lichka being on the entry list. He signed out at the end of round one, at the start of round one, meaning that him and Velocity do not set any points in the championship so far. We do have a brand new team joining us for round two of the championship, Backmarker Racing, courtesy of Jan Willem Bos. And speaking of, he's one of 5 brand new drivers for round two of the championship. Alongside him, Massimo Benedetti, Denver LeBlanc, Philip Schantz and Marcus Carlos. We see new entries for McLaren, Mercedes, Porsche, Ford and BMW across the board there. And we saw just a little glimpse of it when we went over to it. But the regs for round two, of course, our first of the endurance format races for this season. Same free practice length, same quali length. But here's the catch. An extra 30 minutes on top of the racing length from an hour to an hour and a half. And no mandatory pit stop. You'll also note there the weather is looking particularly mixed for our drivers today. 16% chance of dry, 16% chance of full wet. But more poignantly, 69% chance of mixed conditions. That average rain shower length, an hour and 4 minutes, could be longer, could be shorter. And the average gap between those showers, 1 hour, 1 minute, again, could be longer, could be shorter. But what it does give us is a very, very good understanding as to what we could come to expect coming into today's round of the championship. We've got 3.5 minutes left in free practice, and we're just on board at the moment with Bjorn Egil Kausef with the MSA Racing team. We saw some of his exploits from inside the top 10 over the course of round one, and now he takes to the field in the number 977 AMG, just on his way over towards Britain's, one of our 2 chicanes here on the full circuit. Right behind him there, Philip Schantz, the number 76 with Porsche, rocking the old colours of GTE's distant past there. The red, white and black of the Porsche 911 RSR, as you can see there, just hanging in the background as Kausef cuts Hislop's chicane out through turn 12. So if we can catch on board with the driver just about to start their lap here, it's actually Benjamin Hupert, another one of the MSA drivers with Mercedes. We'll stay on board with him as he makes his way out of Lodge Corner and through Deer Leap here at turn 17. We'll stay on board with Hupert in the 441 as he's the first to give us a full track breakdown here at Oulton Park, and already starting things off on a very sketchy note. Old Hall Corner, not a lot of runoff there, and a very sketchy corner geometry brings us immediately into Denton's as we head through the avenue. Now to Cascades at turn 3. And you'll note for your BTCC fans at home, be right about here where we start to hit the brakes for the island circuit, but we're going to keep going all the way past the island bend here at turn 4 into a very hairy braking zone here down at turn 5 at the Shell Oils corner. We go out of this sort of caved in, almost carousel-esque hairpin. We head into Britain's turn 7, 8 and 9, one of 2 chicanes here on the full layout of Oulton Park. We stay on board with Benjamin Hupert in the 441 as we head over the Hilltop Straight and towards turns 10, 11 and 12 at the Hislop chicane, culminating at turn 12 there with Knickerbrook Corner. As we head into the final sector of the track here, and things do get even tighter than you would have seen it already, as now we head up through Clay Hill and Water Tower, turns 13 and 14 on our way to Druids, not to be confused with Druids turn 2 at Brands Hatch. This is turn 15 at Oulton Park. Broadly different from the Druids we experienced last week, and we go barreling up through Warwick Bridge towards Lodge Corner at turn 16. And this is where things can get a little bit awkward, a very strange shape for that last corner, all manner of changes in elevation there, but Hupert brings it in at a close before turn 17 at Deer Leap, so sadly we don't get to see him across the line here at the very waning moments of free practice. We can see Kieran O'Reilly, his teammate at MSA. We got a little bit of an understanding of what we could come to expect from O'Reilly heading out of Brands Hatch, and especially coming into this one. He looked very, very poised in his time at his first visit to an MSV circuit in the Sunday League, and now he's on for double trouble here, and it'll be triple trouble for British tracks. We head to Silverstone next Sunday, which I am thoroughly looking forward to the advent of. The 274 is up through turn 15 at Druids, right at the very, very end here of free practice before we get on to 20 minutes of qualifying. More to discuss in the way of qualifying predictions, though sparse as they may be. We only have in and around 10 bits of data, and that is a pale reflection of the 21 drivers at the moment, and potentially still counting, joining this session. We'll also have a look at the balance of performance coming into today's round across the line of 137.260, but invalidated in the last couple of corners there for Kieran O'Reilly. That's the very end of his qualifying endeavours here. The only driver we're waiting to see across the line is the number 27. We catch him here. That's Ronaldo Jr. with Brabbles. Down towards the line then, our last time of free practice. He crosses the line for a 138.865. The 107 actually managed to get its way out on track. That's Dave Bond. Last lap was a 139.297 in the 107 BMW. So he's got one more trip here around Oulton Park before we get on to the start of qualifying, or so we're led to believe here. He's out through turn 4 on his way up to the Shell Oils hairpin at turn 5. You can see just how much banking there is in the middle. It's caved in towards the centre, kind of like, I said before, carousel, but I'd say also you can make the example, maybe Tarzan corner at Zandvoort, even the last corners of it as well. That's going to make a very, very wet and wild scenario if we are to believe wet conditions are on the way. It's going to throw serious havoc in the way of things for strategy today. Of course, no mandated pit stop. That is the main premise here, the endurance layout. It is open field strategy, but with wet conditions yonder the horizon, the drivers will eventually, if I had to imagine here, find their way onto pit roads today. And this will be exclusively by choice. We'll watch with Dave Bond here as he invalidates there. And as you can see, it turns on the turn of a hat there. From dry and mellow conditions to more stereotypical British weather here as we start the 20 minutes of qualifying. Already out of the gates, you can see making movement in the paddock. Cas van Velzen, our first onto the track here. And speaking of Cas van Velzen, let's discuss his position in the qualifying predictions for today. Van Velzen finds himself very close to that front row, but leading that charge appears to be Melvin Millerstead, a 133.690, with Van Velzen not being too far away at all. You're looking just under 0.3 of a second there between the Swede and the Dutchman on the front row. Christian Lebay finds himself in third ahead of Diman Ivanov. What would have been last season an all Aston Martin second row, Ivanov now having moved over to BMW, finds Lebay by his lonesome in the V12 Vantage on the last of those podium positions in the predicted qualifying standings. Ivanov, of course, fourth ahead of Kieran O'Reilly for Mercedes, who we saw there briefly on track with the MSA Racing team. He's ahead of James Mason in 6th position, Byron Forrest in 7th, Hayden Project 8th, Kevin Quain 9th, and Ben Cheeseman predicted at a top 10 appearance. Of course, with plenty more drivers that we've yet to pick up sufficient data for. I mean, we've got 10 drivers. We actually had 11 total data packets, and there was 22 drivers on the grid. So that is 50% of total mystery. And really, we do quite revel in the opportunity here to be proven wrong on those predictions. Looking into balance of performance today, Ford find themselves on the short end of the stick. So it's not going to be particularly smooth sailing here for Van Velzen in the incredibly wet conditions at the start of qualifying today. He finds himself with 9 more kilos on the number 420 Mustang. They're in fact the only manufacturer to be gaining weight heading into Oulton Park. Aston Martin and Lexus still find themselves the lightest of the bunch with minus 40 and minus 32 kilos. Ferrari find themselves on that sort of BOP podium there, having lost 11 kilos. Audi losing 6 kilos. Mercedes and Porsche losing 4. McLaren losing 3, BMW losing 2. So we stay on board with Cas van Velzen, the first of our drivers onto the field today for qualifying of round 2 of the championship. We bring up our telemetry there. Sadly, it's not giving us the intonation that he's been on a flying lap. It still shows that he's on an out lap there in the number 420, but he makes his way out through turn 2 at Denton's, then to turn 3 at Cascades. And this is the section of the track the drivers will be really, really biting their nails through. You can see already there was problems there on the right-hand side as Cas van Velzen passes Ben Cheeseman in the 114. He's on his way now down towards turn 4 here at Island Bend, down towards the Shell Oils corner at turn 5. And here on that inside, do expect water, if the weather is to keep as it is, to start gathering on that inside bit. And it's just going to start pouring down. Absolutely no grip available through that section. Now as we head into the first of our 2 chicanes, first through Britain's, and you see the Ford just absolutely pulverizes those curbs. Absolutely no trouble navigating that for Cas van Velzen. He's now down towards Hislops there at turns 10, 11. And then into turn 12 at Knickerbrook corner. You see already someone's had a run-in with the tyres on the inside of Hislops at turn 11. So out through turn 12, now to turn 13 at Clay here as we make our way into the final sector on track. We didn't get to see the end of our touring lap there, courtesy of Benjamin Hooper, but we may be able to see one here, courtesy of Cas van Velzen. He's out through Druids then at turn 15. On the home stretch towards the last corner of the track here, we're up through Warwick Bridge. Down towards turn 16 and 17 at Lodge Corner and Deer Leap. right at the very end of our first lap of today. So as we pull away the graphics here from Cas van Velzen to show our timing charts on the left-hand side, let's see where he ranks up amongst his contemporaries. He's a first across the line for a 1:43.472. Now, of course, take all of those times you saw on the quali predictions with a massive, massive grain of salt. Those were more than definitely dry times. As you can see, we're more than about sort of 10 seconds-ish away there. I believe we were talking 33s. We bring the qualifying predictions back up. Yes, so it is a 10-second difference here. Night and day, proverbially, between the dry and wet conditions. Van Velzen holds his mantle for the time being. Vermaak stacks up second, Lebay third. So Malwa on that second and third row for the time being. Of course, plenty more to discuss as next across the line goes the 4:13. James Mason up to a very, very strong breakout lap there. 1:43.179 puts himself on provisional pole position. One of the highest qualifying positions he's seen in a while. Melvin Milliston shows him what for a 1:42.897. Puts the McLaren at the top step. Cas van Velzen now down to third. We can see one of the new drivers today, Marcus Carlos, setting his first lap in the 4:14. Now in fourth. We've seen Marcus Carlos before. I believe we've actually spoken to Marcus Carlos before, of course, during his time in the MSA team in the Console Endurance Series here on NLRL. David Silf, his teammate in the number 443, usurps Milliston, and then joining him there on that front row makes an all-MSA Mercedes front row. Kieran O'Reilly in the 274 puts himself within 3/10 of the leading 443 Merc of David Silf. So that is looking very, very strong indeed in the opening 5 minutes here of qualifying. In wet and wild conditions, it's the story of the battleships here for Mercedes. Their mighty AMG GT3, this 2020 configuration model, uses the same 6.3-litre engine from its previous one, the SLS AMG GT3. And in my opinion, one of the prettiest GT cars to have ever been manufactured. A mighty, mighty work of German engineering. And now Mercedes find themselves almost at a 1 and 2. But here comes Cas van Velzen. We were paying a little too much privy attention there, and our new driver for today, Massimo Benedetti, in first place after his first running lap there. The number 210, 1:41.495. Fun fact, Massimo Benedetti is Italian for maximum blessed, and on a lap like that, that is nothing short of a miracle for McLaren. What a lap by Benedetti. Absolutely staggering there, and I think we're far from over. We've seen just there, David Silf is now down to third. James Mason splits the crowd for Mercedes there between O'Reilly and Silf. Getting a look, the 76 across the line. That was Philip Schantz, who's now 11th after that last lap. He's 4 seconds off the beat. We've just seen a big move up there for Byron Forrest with the Malwa number 824 Mustang. The American up to the top 6 in qualifying right now. He's only a few tenths away from a top 5 appearance. Kieran O'Reilly goes ahead of not only James Mason, but his teammate David Silf for third position. Right behind him there, you can see is Marcus Carlos. Ahead of him is his teammate Benjamin Hooper. On our way down to turn 2. That is an ensemble, had ever I seen one. They're moving in herds here for the MSA team. Mercedes, Mercedes, Ferrari, Mercedes. As you can see here, a bit of a convoy. O'Reilly, Hooper, Carlos, and I think just flagging around in the background there, David Silf, as we make our way to turn 4. So, the bottom line there after the first 7 minutes. Massimo Benedetti, a newcomer to the series, lodges himself on pole position. He could even find an improvement from where he stands at the moment. He's down through turn 16, now to turn 17 in front of him there, giving him some slipstream. Admittedly, a big hefty chunk of spray too is Kevin Quain. And he was just usurped for control of pole position. He crosses the line there and doesn't find the mantle to take it back from Cas van Velzen. So I am left with my jaw agog in disbelief here as to which way qualifying can go. We're not even at the halfway mark. We've already had plenty of drivers give it a very good go. Among them there, Christian Lebay just moves up to third. Now looking to challenge Benedetti and Van Velzen with Aston Martin. So as the track continues to get better here and we start to see a bit more of a dry line form, this could be a very heated qualifying despite the damp and cold conditions Oulton Park appears to be throwing at us. Seems rather on brand at the moment. For those of you competing from the UK, we are in the midst of a bit of a miniature storm season here at the very waning days of July. But what a lap we've just seen there from our top 3. Van Velzen, Benedetti and Lebay. O'Reilly crosses the line, not to an improvement for position. Mason is closing the gap there as he still split the crowd. We just see David Silf, though, show what for the rest of the grid across the line. He goes 4.43 up to third at the end of his last lap. Gone there, Hooper on his tail. So the MSA team trying to work together here to get as many of their drivers inside that pivotal top 8 positions. I'd say wider scale here would be for the top 10. It's right at the very end of the top 10 there. Another MSA driver, Bjorn Egil Kalseth, in 10th position. He's 3 seconds off of the fastest time. 4.14, I believe, is to the line now. Actually, no, that is not. So I was thinking of the, just checking here, the 1.14. As a matter of fact, that was Ben Cheeseman. Right behind him was Tyler Vermack in the number 835 Lexus. Next on a valid flying lap appears to be Kevin Quain. In front of him, though, was the 107 of Dave Bond. We haven't seen his time appear on the charts there. We're going to see an improvement from Quain, yes, ahead of his teammate at Malwar Racing there. Up and ahead, the 835 Lexus of Tyler Vermack by 0.02 of a second there for 11th and 12th position. The 119 across the line goes Christian Lebay, but he's into the pits, and that is an incredibly narrow one. We just caught the very, very trailing end of that. I can imagine, just like Brandt Hatch, that is definitely set to ruffle a few feathers heading into round 2 of the championship. The 4.13 crosses the line then. James Mason remains where he is for the time being. That gap is starting to loosen there inside the top 5. Christian Lebay finds himself just outside of the 1 second bracket, almost 1.2 seconds away from the leading time of the number 420 of Cas van Veltzen. So this is going to be an exceptionally exciting round of the championship we are seeing already play out before our eyes. The 4.14 is just across the line. Marcus Carlos goes up to 6th position then on that last lap gone. In front of him there is Melvin Milliston, just came into the pits after turn 1. We've already seen Kieran O'Reilly lodge in that 3rd fastest time now by 1/10 of a second there. Actually, less than 1/10 of a second if you're looking. That is... No, it is 1/10 of a second. 10th and 400ths between himself and the McLaren of Melvin Milliston. Definitely the land of the battleships today, because we thought it was going to be primarily Mercedes, but here comes Ford with their fastest time. Cas van Veltzen right now at 1:40.687. The 1.14 is in front of him at the moment. He makes his way down to the line. The 1.14 in front, that is, I believe, Ben Cheeseman. Crosses the line from 17th position. Sadly doesn't find an improvement. Does Van Veltzen find any more in his time after that last lap? No. And with just under 9.5 minutes left to go, it is an incredible qualifying session we're seeing past the midway mark here. Just under 10 minutes to go. We're crawling on towards the 9-minute mark here of a 20-minute qualifying session. If you're just joining us now, Cas van Veltzen on pole position, and a new signing in the Sunday League, a new driver today on his inaugural round. Massimo Benedetti in 2nd position, Kieran O'Reilly in 3rd, Melvin Milliston in 4th. David Silf rounds out that top 5. This is set to kick off to be an incredible final couple of minutes here in qualifying. I think the best is still yet to come. The number 76, I believe, there on our charts is heading down towards the line. You can see Diman Ivanov's alongside Philip Schantz there in the number 76 Porsche. We commented on the appearance of that Porsche earlier. A mighty, mighty colour scheme indeed. He's 16th at the moment. He crosses the line, gets pushed down a position because Ivanov lodges in a time for 13th position. 4.14 was across the line just there. Marcus Carlos now takes 3rd fastest. Silfrey takes it from him, though. So the MSA boys are really, really clawing at one another for an opportunity here to be on that front row. They're all giving it a very, very good go of it. And you can see just how narrow the gap was. It was 5 cars within a second of one another, not just a minute ago. Now it is 5 cars within half a second of one another. You can see from 1st all the way down to 9th there, just at the very tip over the 1 second barrier. So actually 1st down to 8th, our drivers all within that 1 second bracket. So this is only set to climb as the track continues to get slowly better and our drivers start to acclimatise the conditions. Now bear in mind, the race could start on massively different ground. We see ahead of Silf there at the moment appeared to be the BMW of Diman Ivanov. Yes, so Diman Ivanov in trouble with 7.5 minutes left to go in qualifying. We were on board with David Silf. In front of him there is Benjamin Hooper. It's going to be another massive swathe of times coming in from the MSA team. I'm going to check up the field here. I believe the 4.13 appears to be heading to the line, if I'm seeing that. Yes, the 4.13 to the line. James Mason with K1 Esports sets the 4th fastest time, splitting the crowd once more as the tip of the spear for the K1 Esports team's fight against MSA. Right now, it is all or nothing for Mason. And in these conditions, he's absolutely flourishing, so it seems, because doesn't seem to be under too much pressure there. The BMWs we've seen already, courtesy of Ivanov, are a tad unstable in the wet. Mason seems to have found the secret sauce, as it were, for the 413. Oh, I say that out of turn 4. That is quite a mighty send-off there. So that is really the danger zone for our drivers. You can see he's just got absolutely no grip to play with there. I may have spoken a little too soon, but absolutely net zero grip there available for our drivers. We are going to check in here with Massimo Benedetti with McLaren number 210. Benedetti, I should say, not Benedetti. Benedetti out of turn 16, then to turn 17. He was on that pole position for a while. Only needs a tenth of a second to make it possible, and he does it by then some. He does 7 tenths on his personal best, puts it 6 tenths between himself and Cas van Veltsen's time in the number 424. You can see he's just starting off a new flying lap, and he's got a lot of work to do here in the next 6 minutes if he means to take pole position back from the 210 McLaren. Number 607, Kevin Quain to the line from 13th position. His teammates Cassier and Lebay and Forrest in front of him to make the top 10. Doesn't find an improvement over the course of that last lap. D-Man Ivanov with BMWs making his way on to the start-finish line here for another flying lap. 5.5 minutes left to go. Qualifying has never looked sweeter here in the Sunday League. The wet really does bring the best and worst out of our drivers today, and it massively shakes the grid up for what looks to be an incredibly exciting grid order as we head into round 2 of the championship. Now, of course, still 5 minutes left to go. We can't call anything yet. Never say never on another driver to come through and storm their way to pole position. Checking then with the next driver on a valid lap to the line. Appears to be the number 27, Ronaldo Jr. with Brabbles Endurance Racing. On his way to the line then, the only Brazilian in this championship, number 27 on his way out of turn 16. Then Dear Leap at turn 17 to the line. Has set only one time, so it seems, that he's 7 seconds off the beat from 21st. And he's massively clawed that gap back. All he needs now is 4 tenths of a second to make his way to 20th position. Onwards and upwards here after a very, very late break in to his fastest available personal lap. Christian Lebay jumps Byron Forrest there to make his way to the top 10. The 119 now inside those pivotal top 10 positions as mentioned from earlier. We can see, though, that the gap was previously 8 cars within a second. It's now closed up in the closing minutes here to only 6 cars, with Benjamin Hooper 9 tenths and 9 hundredths from the fastest time from Massimo Benedetti. I really need to clear my mind of that Benedetti. There's an E in there. My apologies there to Massimo Benedetti, because respect where respect is due. That is a phenomenal lap. Out through turn 4, on his way to turn 5. We'll catch up with him in a moment's time. In a moment's time there. 274 and number 1 to the line. That's Ivanov and O'Reilly. Ivanov crosses the line just ahead of O'Reilly. It's going to be incredibly close. O'Reilly up to 3rd in the 274. 4 minutes left to go, but he's pushed down there because here comes Tyler Vermack. Better late than never for the Malwar team's sort of rising wonder kid in the 835. The South African talent in the solo Lexus of this championship was still yet to be joined by last season's champion Jason Bush. Sadly couldn't make it to this round again today, but he's in our Twitch chat cheering on for the boys at Lexus. Tyler Vermack then takes that second fastest time. He's getting closer and closer to the pivotal half-second mark here before he can lay a significant dent on Benedetti's fastest. 3 minutes left to go then. Number 27 next to the line. That was Junior. Now, like I said, needs to find 4 attempts if he means to get up a position here. We have actually lost a car. We had 22 vehicles. We're now down to 21. Not that Ronaldo Jr. is going to be arguing with that circumstance, because it's given him a free position there from 21st to 20th. 443 crossed the line behind him. That was David Silf up to the second fastest time, so he rips the mantle away from Tyler Vermack there. He held on to second for but a fleeting moment. Could he fight that back? Only time will tell us different. The 413 just crossed the line there. James Mason still hangs on by a thread there to 6th position, and he's so close to an improvement there up into the top 5 on fellow British talent Kieran O'Reilly. That gap only a few hundredths of a second there between the Merc and the BMW. Right now, we're going to catch on board, though, with Tyler Vermack. Down towards turn 16 he goes. This will be among his final flying laps of today, pardon me. About this and just enough room to squeeze one more in if he absolutely foot to the floor, pedal to the metals it now. out through turn 1. Doesn't find an improvement over the course of that last lap. Kieran O'Reilly behind him there to the line. And I don't believe either found an improvement. So a bit of a bitter note there on that last lap for O'Reilly. Melvin Milliston's not too far away from him, looking for one final push to put himself up in the top 5. He's right at the very back of the top 10 at the moment, and looking more at pressure from Christian Lebay's 119 Aston Martin than he is at this time to challenge the cars ahead. But for all we know, and we've seen Milliston's performance before across a multitude of manufacturers, he does like a bit of a sandbag tease here, so he does like to wait all the way until the very, very end of qualifying before he gives us an absolute belter. So do expect a magnitude 6 belter on the way from the number 68. Better late than never, the mantra of Milliston. Van Velzen puts himself within 0.2 of a second there, so he's up ahead of David Silf. And Tyler Vermack pushed down to the back of that second row. Kieran O'Reilly now to the back of the top 5. Van Velzen, he's lacking that confidence we saw at the very start of the session there over the Britain's chicane, turns 7, 8 and 9. He was able to decimate those corners on the first couple of laps here, but now that the pressure is really starting to mount on, as we've just seen there, the first of our 39s coming from Massimo Benedetti. That is brutal stuff there from the 210. We really thought it was within a chance here for these drivers to fight, but good lord, if we've not been shut down there by Benedetti's ruthless time of a 1:39.445. The 274s to the line. We're watching here with Kieran O'Reilly. Right behind him, the 68 of Melvin Milliston. O'Reilly to third, Milliston to second. So things could still liven up in the very closing moments of qualifying. Milbank to the line from 15th. Behind him, Cas Van Velzen. Milbank up to 13th. Van Velzen to second. He's still got one more lap to play. So don't count this out here. The gap seemed insurmountable, but these drivers are going to give it absolute bedlam before they give up. Checking at the moment, the 119 is heading out of turn 15 at Druids. That's Christian Lebay. On his tail is our pole sitter, Massimo Benedetti, in the 210 McLaren. What a qualifying session we've been treated to here in round 2 of the championship. But Lebay runs wide out of turn 16. So that's the end of his qualifying efforts. Does Benedetti extend the margin? No, because into the pits he dives. The 414 could be the next chance here for a pole position. Here comes Marcus Carlos to the line from 9th position. Makes his way to 7th. So no pole there for the 414 on his first round of the Sunday League in I believe a good while. I think we have seen him before, but this is his entry to Season 3. James Mason then from inside the top 10, the sole hope at the moment for K1 Esports, just pushed out to the back of the top 10. Can he reclaim a position firmly inside? No, only 10th position there. We saw at the end of his last lap, Benjamin Hooper in the top 5. 114 across the line. That was Ben Cheeseman up to 16th. Where, oh, where is our next time coming from? It's the 835 of Tyler Vermack. Here he comes to the line from turn 16, now turn 17. Does he have a chance here to challenge the top 5 or nary the top 3? Makes his way to the line. Sadly, neither, as he makes his way only to 6th position. What an end to qualifying. We just saw there Melvin Milliston, I believe, set a time 3rd fastest of the session as he makes his way to the pits. But what a closure there to qualifying. Fantastic stuff indeed here at the very, very end of round 2 quali. Before we get on to our grid, we'd like to remind you of our sponsors over at Malward Transport. Wouldn't be possible to bring you these broadcasts week in, week out without their support. They've been very, very proud sponsors of both us and NLRL over the course of now 3 seasons heading into here on the Sunday League, as well as the Console Endurance Series and the Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship. They specialise in oversized cargo and trucking logistics. They're specialists with 30 years of experience and expertise in the region of Quebec. If you or someone you know are located in Canada and looking for an efficient and professional transportation brokerage service for your business, visit their website on www.malwar-transport.ca. That's www.malois-transport.ca. So, right at the very end of qualifying, it's a pole position for new entry to the season, Massimo Benedetti in the 210 McLaren. What a performance we've seen there on entry. We can see now joining the session right at the very end, Dave Bond and one of our new drivers as well, Denver LeBlanc in the number 87 Merc. He'll be starting from 23rd after missing qualifying today. We'll see what he can do then over the hour and a half of racing we've got set in store here at Oulton Park. And what a session that has proven to be. Now, bear in mind, I want to bring back up the regulations for weather coming into this race. Of course, we've been given the data here by Race Control. 16% chance of dry, 16% chance of full wet conditions throughout, but the most prominent is 69% chance of mixed conditions. And we've got the average rain shower length and the gap between those showers. If we are to expect to be within that 69%, we are almost guaranteed a chance of rain at least once, whether it's at the start, middle, or end of this session. With an hour and a half, we will eventually run into some rainy conditions. So, lining up on the grid, 2 minutes to go then before the start of round 2 of the championship. You can see just tucked in over the timing charts on the left-hand side on is a sensational opening performance by Massimo Benedetti. He takes pole position in the 210 McLaren ahead of Cas van Velzen on the front row. Making up the second row then Melvin Milliston and Kieran O'Reilly. And then three's company there, 3 in a row, 4, 5 and 6 for Mercedes and MSA. As behind Kieran O'Reilly in 5th and 6th for an all MSA third row, Benjamin Hoopert and David Silf. Marcus Carlos joins them closely behind there in 7th. Joining him on the 4th row is Byron Forrest, the leading car for the Malois Racing team. Behind him, James Mason, the leading car for K1, trying to score more points in the team's championship. And rounding out the top 10, Christian Lebay. Axel Cassier, who was on the podium last round, finds himself 11th and ahead of Bjorn Egil Kalsef. Scott Milbank 13th, Kevin Quain 14th, Ben Cheeseman rounds out the top 15. Diamant Ivanov ahead of Philip Schantz in 16th and 17th, Timothy Jolicoeur 18th, Ronaldo Jr. 19th. Rounding out the top 20 then is Dave Bond. Denver LeBlanc in 21st, but more poignantly, it looked like a disconnect has forced Tyler Vermaak to start from 22nd. So that is disastrous for Vermaak. He had a great qualifying session and now has got to do his homework all over again in the hour and a half of racing up ahead. That story of the day, Massimo Benedetti, 210 McLaren there up front alongside Cas van Velzen. Van Velzen's gunning for his first win here in the Sunday League. He was tantalizingly close in the last round, missed out by about 9.5 seconds to Alexander Rozhnov in the 1-2-3 Ford, but he was part of that historic Ford 1-2-3 finish back in Brands Hatch of the opening round of the championship. The 30-second warning is shown then for our drivers. We'll stay on board with Benedetti. It's a short run then to turn 16 and 17. And for Van Velzen, he's looking to become, for both of these drivers as a matter of fact, because despite the Italian naming, Massimo Benedetti is registered to compete from the Netherlands. Both of these drivers looking to be the first Dutch driver in over a season now to win in the Sunday League. Back in Season 2, the last win we saw was actually this round in last season, round 2 of the championship, which was won at Donington Park, another MSV circuit, by the Flying Dutchman himself, Wesley Kuiper. These two looking to become the next heir to the throne of Dutch excellence here in the Sunday League, but they have got a hefty crowd mounting behind them for an hour and a half of racing here on what looks to be dry and amicable conditions. Make no mistake, it is going to get soggy by most chances here in Oulton Park for round 2 of the championship of the NLRL Sunday League Season 3, powered by Malois Transport. We are but moments away then, without further ado, as we are 22 cars in all, 11 aside of it. We are green and racing here for an hour and a half, the first endurance race of the championship here at Oulton Park. And a great start from the front though then by Benedetti and Van Velzen. Milliston right behind and now up and ahead of O'Reilly. Making our way then down towards turn 2. Benedetti leads from Van Velzen. Looking further down the order, we can see already yellow flags aloof there for the 69 and the 27. Ronaldo Jr. and Timothy Jolicoeur in trouble. Not sure what's gone on back there, but Jolicoeur's in at the wall. Junior appears to have some kind of wayward damage. Back into green flags temporarily then as we head into Sector 2. Looking from the back of the field, Ben Cheeseman's perspective, as Philip Schantz goes side by side there. The Porsche trying to get his elbows out in the early moments of this race, knowing what it can become. In a moment's time, it's contact there between himself and Schantz. Narrowly avoids certain doom before Britain's chicane there. Turns 7, 8 and 9. Very elbows out early doors shenanigans there by Philip Schantz. Ben Cheeseman, though, he's not having absolutely any of it. It's going to take it the long way around. We see up the order there, things getting side by side between Vermaak and Bjorn Egil Kalsef. We'll be checking in on that in a moment. Into Hislops. And already kicking that tyre wall aloof. It actually bounces off the nose of the 107 BMW behind Cheeseman. That's Dave Bond. Looking up the order, we can see already looks to be elbows out between James Mason and Christian LeBay. We're looking here with the MSA crowd. As you can see, it's razor thin, as a matter of fact, when we get in on board the perspective of Kieran O'Reilly. We can catch him here. Here's from LeBay's perspective. We touched on that a moment ago, right on the very back end of James Mason's BMW, but from Hupert's perspective, he's really squished in there, sandwiched amongst his teammates. He's got Kieran O'Reilly in front of him. He's got David Silf behind him. Up ahead of him, we've got that fight for second, which we'll be catching on board with here as Melvin Milliston gets properly sideways on his way through turn 3. So we'll stay on board here with Melvin Milliston. He's fighting for second position in this race in the 68 McLaren, chasing down Cas van Velzen. Meanwhile, Massimo Benedetti, I should say, is leading the charge. And the 210 up the inside goes Melvin Milliston. It's going to be side by side between McLaren and Ford on their way to Britain's. The Ford will be to the inside. Does Milliston back out of it? Yes, he does. On his way to turn 7, 8 and 9. O'Reilly, Hupert, Silf right behind him, Carlos and Forrest. In the background there, you can see LeBay and Mason looking to potentially tangle in the middle section of the track here. Very dangerous to do so between our chicanes here, up through Hilltop, now into Hislops at turns 10 and 11, then turn 12, entering sector 3 as we go into turn 13 at Clay Hill. So a fairly, by most standards, cleanish start to the race. We were expecting a lot worse there. We did see one incident, of course, Ronaldo Jr. and Timothy Jolicoeur earlier on, about 2 laps ago, and it's still properly elbows out between Cas van Velzen and Melvin Milliston. He is not trying his chances here. He knows the McLaren in the dry conditions is one of the best pound-for-pound cars for pace here. He's stuck up behind the Ford. Not much that he can do right now. The Ford's got him pitched in the opening straight here. On our way past Deer Leap, now down to the Old Hall corner at turn 1 as we start lap 2 of this race. There's a lap ago, not 2 laps ago there from my notes earlier. Van Velzen then leading Milliston and O'Reilly in what looks to be a growing crowd here for the fight of second, because up and ahead and by a growing margin of 3 seconds and above goes the leading McLaren of Massimo Benedetti. We can see the number 76, Philip Chances, into the pits then. Porsche taking an early pit stop potentially for damages there. We saw him really get quite antsy in the opening laps there, especially around this section of the track. Shell Oils now out of turn 6. Towards Britain's there, turns 7, 8 and 9. Watching from the perspective of the car in 3rd place, Melvin Milliston. Finished 4th last race, was in the chances to win before his incident with Self on the run into the pit lane at Brands Hatch. Right now, though, a proper defensive masterclass in the early minutes of this race by Cas van Velzen is keeping Milliston at bay. And you can see in the background there, that was Marcus Carlos having to take the run off at Hislops chicane. So checking in here, you can see as well side-by-side action between Cheeseman and Bond. Who yields first? I believe, yes, Cheeseman there through that section of the track. And the 4-1-4, so I'm led to believe, of Marcus Carlos has had to massively back off over Hislops. You can see Bjorn Egil Cowstep and Scott Milbank behind our 2 here. Cheeseman and Bond fighting for 15th. We'll catch up with them later on. We can see the fight just at the very back of the top 10 here. 8th for 9th position, squabbling for position. LeBay versus Mason. Do apologise for the Windows notification. Fine enough, Windows Defender wants a summary right about now. Haven't the time, haven't the place, and haven't the patience. Forrest then ahead of Mason, LeBay behind him. You can see in the background Cassier and Quain, the teammates at Malwa, now joined by Tyler Vermack, and fair play to him. He has carved his way halfway up the field now in the span of only 3 laps with 1 hour and 24 minutes left to play. That is plenty time for Vermack to lodge in a solid points position in today's race. A little bit of dust there kicked up in the face of our 2 Mustangs heading down into Shell Oils, as that's Kieran O'Reilly. That's gone super wide out through turn 4. The first of our victims there at the Island Bend. That, when the rain does arrive, if it does arrive today, as it's still looking rather dry, peculiarly enough, could spell doom for quite a few drivers today. You can see O'Reilly, those slots back in ahead of Diman Ivanov, down in 13th position. Byron Forrest under siege at the moment from 6th position there. We could be seeing a potential fight here for 6th in a moment's time. We'll stay on board with the defending Mustang of Byron Forrest, one of the newer drivers for the for the Malwa racing team behind them there with K1 Esports, who I was thinking of, James Mason in the 413. Up the field, Benedetti leads the charge. Milliston appears to be now up in a second ahead of Cas van Velzen. Benjamin Hooper in 4th position. Marcus Carlos in 5th. So he's made a remarkable recovery of it there. We did see a yellow flag come out through Hislop's the last lap there when Carlos had to take that emergency runoff heading into turns 10, 11 and 12, but we're not sure exactly why it stayed for so long. Down through turn 2 then, Forrest, Mason and LeBay. Not a very wide gap at all there between the Mustang and the BMW. We are seeing an even closer gap, though. This is for the fight of, right now, looking at it, 9th position from the perspective of Kevin Quain, having to defend with every ounce of his being here from his teammates as side-by-side in contact up through Shell Oils. That's disastrous for the Malwar team, as we see coming out of turn 4, the Island Bend, Axel Cassier chasing Kevin Quain. Cassier guns it for the inside, but you see just a little bit of squirreling there from the back of his Mustang. Couldn't get the brakes pitched in on time. Very nearly lost control. In fact, did make quite a significant slam against his teammate. The two are still side by side, but are now sandwiched in between MSA cars, flanking the front and rear. Sylph now up and ahead of them. O'Reilly right behind them. Meanwhile, the number 44 of Scott Milbank ran into some trouble just earlier on, down at the very same corner. Shell Oils at turn 5. Timothy Jolicoeur now at the back of the field, but he's trying to catch up to 19th position Scott Milbank. 21st here, Philip Shantz on his first race in the number 76. Less than an ideal start indeed. We see LeBay still chasing Mason, so that will be one to keep an eye on here as we check now around the field. Melvin Milliston now up to 2nd, and Benjamin Hooper up to 3rd. Marcus Carlos up to 4th, because we've seen trouble aloof for Cas Van Velzen. He started on that front row. Let's see if we can catch here with the Mustang of Van Velzen. The 420 has ran into quite the spot of bother indeed. He's now down to the back of the top 5. Started on that front row, down 3 positions here. What on earth had to have happened to put Van Velzen out of commission on the podium? We will be actually catching on here with an incredibly sharp fight between Sylph, Quain, Cassier, O'Reilly and Ivanov. A 5-man fight for the last of those top 10 positions. Let's see if we can get a look here with the car first onto the fray to attack Sylph's position. That's Kevin Quain. Now, of course, he and Cassier had that collision last lap. That's what's put them in this situation to start off with. This was originally going to be the fight for 6th position. They're far, far away from where they wanted to be over the course of the last couple of laps. I think another car, yes, the 977. I believe that's Bjorn Egil Kalseth in trouble at turn 5. That has really seemed to claim a lot more souls than we would have expected. We would have predicted the bulk of it to happen down at turn 4. Turn 5, though, seems to be Oulton Park's Grim Reaper. 10 minutes into this race then, having a look at where the standings are, and it's been quite the shake-up inside the top 10. But one thing is certain, Massimo Benedetti leads this race by a widening margin here. It was 3 seconds the last time we observed it. I believe it has now more than doubled to Melvin Milliston, 6.7 seconds. Hooper is on his trails here, the leading MSA car, charging against Milliston's number 68 McLaren. It's a McLaren 1-2 here, so we do sit on the chances of another manufacturer 1-2. The last to do so was in Bathurst in Season 2, Aston Martin, Ian Skeen and Christian LeBay. The V8 and V12 Vantage finished in a 1-2 formation in Bathurst. Could it be McLaren's chances here? Now, of course, it would be tough to live up to the expectations set in stone by Ford. Amongst them on that 1-2-3 finish was Cas Van Velzen, right now charging to the rear quarters of Marcus Carlos there in the Ferrari. I'm actually going to check in with those two. We see there that is Jan-Willem Bos, late to the session in the number 100 for Backmarker Racing, sadly sitting in the pit lane for the time being. Christian LeBay still holding on to the action at hand here, still eyeing up James Mason and surfing the chaos to put himself up another position from 9th now to 8th. Checking there, we could see an imminent fight for 2nd between Milliston and Hooper. Keep a close eye on that right now. We want to see what is the current state of affairs between Marcus Carlos and Cas Van Velzen. Well, we can see right here from Carlos's perspective, he is absolutely swarmed on all fronts by the Ford at his tail here on his way to turn 15 at Druids. Stay on board then with Marcus Carlos. Now, we were told... Oh, never mind. I will catch up with you later on that. That is a major incident between Carlos and of Cas van Velzen. Now, we were told, whilst this is happening, I'm pretty sure we were told Carlos was going to be competing with BMW. So I am a little bit surprised, because that's an odd-looking BMW, to see what has gone on there. But that was a pretty cut and dry incident between the pair of them at turn 16. Let's just get another look of that here. Go heading down into turn 16. Van Velzen takes it for the inside and just sweeps the back end of the 414 Ferrari. And then he just taps the nose there. And James Mason also taps the rear quarter of Byron Forrest's Malois Mustang. So never mind on that front. So yeah, I want to pull this up because on the original papers, the papers that we got, well, virtually, I guess, from SimGrid, showed this graphic. Now, I'm not an expert. Now, you can correct me, BMW fans in the chat, you can absolutely correct me on this. That's a bit of an odd-looking BMW. I believe, yes, he has pulled a cheeky on us, and he has changed his car at the very last second under our noses. Very annoying, but to be fair, looking at it here, not to be unexpected. This is the last time we saw Marcos Carlos was in the 414 Ferrari back during his time in the Console Endurance Series. So, really, if we were a bit more of a psychic, we would have been able to call that one. You can see right behind him at the moment looks to be action between Axel Cassier and Kieran O'Reilly. Let's get on board with that if we can catch them just before the flashpoint of their rivalry. Where on earth are they here? Kieran O'Reilly just gets up and ahead of Axel Cassier. We saw the premonitions of that move. Holding his nerve there for 12th position. It has been a very mixed bag in the opening quarter hour here for an hour and a half of racing at Oulton Park for the MSA team. Kieran O'Reilly does have a tiny bit of damage to consider in his next pit stop. The 274 holds on to 12th right now, sandwiched in between Diman Ivanov ahead of him and the raging Mustang number 301 of Axel Cassier, who was one of that three in the rolling 1-2-3 finish for Ford last weekend. Plenty to consider on that front. Just having a gander then across the field to see where our next fights are coming from. We will keep an ear to the ground on the drivers we just left off from, but you can see right now leading that charge. Let's stay on board with the driver second most into that fight to give us a bit of a middle of the ground perspective here from Diman Ivanov. Right now in what I can only describe as a total war for 10th. Kevin Quain holds his nerve. The Canadian driver for Malois Racing in the 607 Mustang leads this battle. And fighting from 11th is the number 1 BMW of Diman Ivanov. Last season was the number 1 Aston Martin. Behind him there, you can see the 274 Mercedes of Kieran O'Reilly. And then further down the order, Axel Cassier, David Silf, and I believe looking just behind him there, that's Ben Schiessman in the 114 McLaren on our way out through turn 13 at Clay Hill. This is remarkably close here, and he may have to start considering, I should say, his options in a fight for 11th because he's dropping away from Quain, but O'Reilly is not dropping his momentum whatsoever and swarmed in after one mistake there. Overdrew it, but it's contact between all three of them. Ivanov, Cassier, and O'Reilly are into the wall at turn 16. Absolutely brutal. The second time this race that this has happened. He was swarmed in, 2 positions for the price of 1. He wasn't expecting Cassier to break early, but he was trying to go super late, hoping the Mustang would hold the right-hand side, but it was dominoes from the word go. That is a mighty shame there for these drivers. O'Reilly and Cassier surfed it past. Ivanov was left stranded there, did not expect what came next. And you can see Silf just sneaks one in on him there. And fair play to him. That's a easy free position for the MSA Mercedes of David Silf. Now you can see he's down the order. The 301 is into the pit lane. Side by side right now, it's Schiessman and Ivanov. But behind him, trouble for what appears to be the 114, the 274. That has damage. Yes, so Kieran O'Reilly was caught up in some trouble there whilst we regained our footing out through turns 4 and 5. I believe the 114 might have also been caught in that for a time. Actually, no, as a matter of fact, because there's 114 chasing Ivanov. That's Ben Schiessman from 12th position. We could be seeing here the fight for 11th. Let's quickly stay on board here with the McLaren of Ben Schiessman. What a cracker of an opening we've seen there. No less than 17 minutes into today's race. The number 76 has brought the yellow flags out, and that's Philip Schantz. That's down what appears to be looking at the map here. That's Hislops. and Knickerbrook at turns 11 and 12 in Sector 2, but he's back going now, so we're back in green flag conditions, and that is great news for these two, because they can continue their fight. The green flag's waved directly in front of them, even off to the inside then, at Old Hall Corner, turn 1, then to turn 2, as we head towards the avenue here. Turn 2 coming up here at Denton's, now down to Cascades, turn 3. Ben Cheeseman is in hot pursuit. Kieran O'Reilly is into the pit lane to service the 274 for major damages incurred on that last lap. Still yet to figure out what happened at this very section of the track. We get a pretty good understanding of it here from our two drivers' perspectives in the fight for 11th position. Super late on the brakes goes Ben Cheeseman. We want to get a look up the order because things are looking tight inside the top 10. We will be cutting away from these two in a moment's time unless we see something seriously spectacular on our way through Britain's. We could be seeing the inclination of it at the moment. Up the hill we go through Hilltop towards turn 10 at the start of the Hislop chicane. Down through turn 10 we go. Now to Hislop's turn 11. Then to turn 12. Ivanov's holding his nerve quite nicely there. It's not been the greatest of race starts for him, but he's looking to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. That is the modus operandi of the number 1 BMW right now. Ben Cheeseman is not making this an easy task whatsoever for the Bulgarian talent in front. D-Man Ivanov picked up one race win last season. That was at the Circuit of the Americas after a penalty for Tyler Vermack. So we'll catch up with these two in a moment's time. They head through turn 16. The yellow flags are out in front, but that's for the pit straight, courtesy of the 301 of Axel Cassier, who looks to be a first of quite a few DNFs today on track. We did have a few drivers disconnect, if I'm not mistaken, as well. One driver who has snuck through the fray here and is on an absolute warpath on his way up to 7th is Tyler Vermack. He started 22nd on this grid today. That is progress manifest for Vermack in the 835. That is silent, but incredibly deadly. So we're having a gander here. Van Veltzen continues his push back towards the podium, now maintaining 3rd. LeBay is right behind him there in 4th. Hooper and Mason. So it's been all a cropper here for MSA. They've been spread out amongst the field where they were able to get the bulk of their drivers inside the top 10. They now find themselves scattered amongst the fray. Furthest up the order of any of them is Benjamin Hooper, the 441, who we caught earlier on in today's session. We're watching right now with the Ford Mustang of Cas Van Veltzen. He started 2nd. He's only down 1 position now, still leading the charge. It's a McLaren 1-2 for Massimo Benedetti and Melvin Milliston. Benedetti's looking to become the first Dutch winner since Wesley Kuiper at Season 2, Round 2 last season. Van Veltzen, though, has got potentially a very V12 Vantage-shaped problem starting to appear in his rear-view mirror. That's Christian LeBay, and right on his tail is Benjamin Hooper. Let's see if we can catch on board with those two here. They make their way down through turn 3 here at Cascades. On our way then through Lakeside, on our way to turn 4, the Island Hill Bend. Now, this is where it's caught a lot of drivers out here. Plenty of drivers have found quite unfortunate turns of fate at this section of the track, but not this case for any of our drivers on screen at the moment. Van Veltzen just starting to escape the sights here of Christian LeBay, who is going to have to start thinking about his options here in a defensive fight for the top 5. He finds himself in a very, very spry 4th position in the V12 Vantage. He's been one of the chief principles of the idea you can take an old machine and make it perform like new, and he's really been at the cornerstone of this philosophy. We've seen other drivers sort of mount around this idea. The unorthodox can absolutely land a massive punch on today's meta, but he's looking at that fight right now for 5th. Hoopert's on his tail, not too far away as well. James Mason, who's had very good progress over the course of the last 21 minutes of racing here in Oulton Park. LeBay has got his hands full, though. Let's get on board with the car right behind him. That's Benjamin Hooper with Mercedes. We go heading up through turn 16, now turn 17. You can see the gap starting to actually equalise. So we could even be looking not only at the fight right now, this is the fight for now 4th position from the perspective of Hooper. This could absolutely be a leapfrog into a fight for 3rd, because Cas Van Veltzen is being caught up here through turns 1, 2 and 3 by Christian LeBay's Aston Martin. Out through Cascades we go then. past Lakeside. What a symphony there. Leading that charge, 5.4 litre V8 engine by Ford M Sports. Oh no, it's all got asunder for Benjamin Hooper. I think we've just got a very clear idea of some of the shenanigans going on out through there. That was almost terrifyingly accurate. As we see, even the slightest graces. Now, he was already unstable coming out of turn 4. Gets on the brakes, and that rear has just got nowhere to go. It slips all the way asunder of him, 180 degrees before he hits the far side wall as we enter turn 5. Let's just get a look at it there. So already sliding there, four-wheel drift for Ben Hooper as he makes his way out of turn 4. Then as he gets onto the brakes for turn 5, there was absolutely nothing he could have done in that situation. Once you hit the grass, you are a passenger here in Oulton Park. It's one of its worst qualities, but it's one that creates these terrifying racing opportunities. Now, we do also have a yellow flag out right now. We check in at the moment, the 76 between turns 1, 2, and 3. That's Philip Shantz. We're going to try and catch on board there with the Porsche before he makes his way to the pit lane. What on earth happened for Shantz there? You can see he's stopped at the... that would be your driver's right-hand side as Milliston passes. Then Jolicoeur. That looks to be down and out there for Shantz. He's in a very scary spot for these drivers coming up here. Here's Cas van Velzen and Christian Lebay. We saw them in that fight earlier. Now following them with a bit of gap between himself and the Malwar cars at his front and rear. As we see now peeling into the pits goes Philip Shantz. That looks to be another down and out drive. We also have the news of a drive-through penalty, and that hits the stalls of the 414. Marcus Carlos finds his way into some kind of trouble, and he believes to call it quits there. That's one way to enter a salvage point. So it has now started to wreak havoc on this paddock. And that rhymes lovely. But it started to wreak havoc here. Just the track alone. Bear in mind, weather has yet to play its indiscriminate hand on our drivers today. We saw it in qualifying, but it seems cut and dry for the first 30 minutes or so here. No current risk of rain. Having a look here as we pull up our chart, it's to remain cloudy for at least the next 30 minutes. As we get towards the first 30 minutes being run up here in round 2 of the championship. The bottom line once more. Massimo Benedetti leads the charge on his first ever drive here in the Sunday League. And I must say, it is one of the most remarkable breakout performances I've ever seen. It's mirroring, as a matter of fact, the driver who's not here today to defend his race-winning streak, Alexander Rozhnov with You Amateurs Racing. So out goes Rozhnov for the time being here at the MSV circuits in the opening rounds of Season 3. And in comes Massimo Benedetti. Trading Ford for McLaren excellence here, because we're seeing a McLaren 1-2 in the making. Melvin Milliston's in a very confident second there, and 10 seconds up the road from what looks to be a warring duo on the second row. Cas van Velzen looking to reclaim the mantle of a podium here. He's just got it by the skin of his teeth, because chasing him is Season 1's champion, looking to up his own positions in this championship, is Christian Lebay. Jason? Why am I keep saying Jason? It's not Jason Bush, it's James Mason. James Mason is in the top 5, not Jason Bush. He's in the chat, as a matter of fact, joining us for today's race. Byron Forrest in 6th position, Tyler Vermack 7th, and what looked like Sylph behind him, but he's all the way down in 16th. It's actually Diman Ivadov to make 8th position, Ben Cheeseman 9th, Kevin Quain 10th, Dave Bond in 11th, Milbank 12th, Kalsif 13th, just running wide there on his way out past, I believe, looking at it here on the track, that's out through turn 12 and turn 13. So he's at Clay Hill. Is a damaged McLaren here for Brabble's Endurance Racing. Number 27, Ronaldo Jr. slams the Sunoco signs. How do you pronounce that company, by the way? Sunoco? Sudoku. Yeah. Sudoku Oils, yes. Fantastic. But Ronaldo Jr. in trouble there. Major damage, and he's in the iron sights of the lapping cars here in that fight for the last of the podium positions, and then for the fight at the top 5. You can see as well Jolicoeur on a different stretch of the race entire, but he's looking to take 14th. Jolicoeur's up to 14th then, to the detriment of Ronaldo Jr. Looks to be in for a very lengthy stint of the pits. You can see as well Tyler Vermack waging war here in the top 10. He's joined by his teammate out in front, Byron Forrest, in the 824. Sunoco there, we had a clarification from Jason. I've always struggled with the name of that oil sponsor. It's just a very strange thing. We don't see them a lot in the UK at least. We don't see Sunoco a lot. Sunoco, I think I called it there the first time. For Max then up on the inside of Byron Forrest, waning grip there on his way towards Shell Oils. Up ahead of him there, Timothy Jolicoeur, another Maubois car, now on a different length of the race from 14th position. We also see David Silf emerged from the pits. And is now on the charge from the back of our top 15. Just checking in then with what looked to be one of the more poignant fights here past the 30-minute mark. Christian Lebay versus Cas van Veltzen. Aston Martin versus Ford here for the remaining podium position. Yellow flags are out, and it is Jolicoeur in trouble there after the exit of turn 12, so it appears. So same area we saw Ronaldo Jr. run into some trouble. Now strikes twice here for the Mustang of Timothy Jolicoeur. He signals Ben Cheeseman to come around him, as that looks to also be potentially damaged. This time he doesn't take a Sunoco sign with him for good measure. He makes his way out there. Oh my goodness, did you see the slam against the wall there at turn 15 at Druids for Ben Cheeseman? The yellow flags are going to continue to wave here, as where it found misfortune the corner before for Jolicoeur, the curse now strikes in the court of Cheeseman from 9th position, goes asunder through turn 15. That is not looking great. So we got word there from Ronaldo Jr. He got slammed on the rear, lost control in turn 3. So even more trouble finding its way to the 27. The 274 brings out the yellow flags. It's Kieran O'Reilly now from 16th position. Also a driver to be caught out here on his run out through turn 12. So this seems to be a really cursed section of the track here, out through Hislops and Knickerbrook Corner, on the way to Clay Hill and Water Tower, turns 13 and 14, has caught so many drivers out. And then turn 15 as well, we saw just the moment before catch Ben Cheeseman out. The green flags are fortunately, with some mercy here, back out on the track after what seems to have been just this mass grave being created in Sector 3. Checking here with Scott Milbank, another one of the K1 drivers. As we look around the field, Ronaldo Jr. back out on track. Now 17th in this race. Cheeseman into the pits. He's 13th at the moment with damage on the nose. So could be in there for quite some time. Now bear in mind, there still is that possibility of rain by the end of this race. We are in that 69% bracket, more likely than not. I think the drivers would be a little bit gutted if they didn't get to see at least a little bit of wet racing today. And we would be too. We could see up the field there from when we were watching with Dave Bond. As a matter of fact, our fight for third is that bright fluorescent greenish yellow 420, and the red and black Aston on his tail marks the presence of Cas van Veltzen and Christian Lebay. See if we can catch on board with the sonorous cry of that V12 Vantage as he takes to the fight for the podium here in Oulton Park. So out through Britain's, Mason has to cut the waning part of Britain's chicane there through turn 9. Lucky to have not picked up any kind of penalty there. We have seen a drive-through already hit one driver this race, the 414 of Marcus Carlos. So Lebay in through this section of the track seems to drop quite a bit of time. You can see very high risk of understeer through turn 15 at Druids. Now this is absolutely what caught Cheeseman out. It's almost a double apex through that section at turn 15, though it still forms the basis of one corner. So on our way down towards turn 1 at Old Hall Corner. It's Van Veltzen from Lebay then on our fight for the last of those podium positions. Having a look then, with an hour of racing left to go, we're already a half an hour into the endurance round here at Oulton Park, and what a race it has been so far. Massimo Benedetti leads the charge from Melvin Milliston. Cas van Veltzen and Christian Lebay, you're watching on your screens at the moment, are half a second from one another as they make their way through Lakeside on their way to turns 4 and 5 here in the fight for third position. James Mason, not too far away, rounds out our top 5. Tyler Vermack on the warpath from 22nd makes it to 6th position so far, with a chance to go even higher by the end of today's race. He is in an easy candidate position for driver of the day in my books right now. Byron Forrest in 7th, Diman Ivanov in 8th, Kevin Quain 9th, and Dave Bond rounds out the top 10 for BMW. Bjorn Egil Kalsef in 11th, Scott Milbank 12th, David Silf in 13th, Timothy Jolicoeur 14th, Ben Cheeseman 15th, Kieran O'Reilly 16th, Ronaldo Jr. 17th, and Axel Cassier in 18th position. It has been a serious mixed bag for both Malwar and MSA today, meaning there's plenty for them to pick up on when they head to Silverstone next week. Still watching them with the 119. Let's stay on board. We'll leave you on board here with the sound of that fantastic V12 Vantage chasing down Cas van Veltsen's Mustang. We'll be back in just a moment's time. So still on board with LeBay and Van Veltsen. They've gotten closer than they were the lap before. They make their way down through turn 3 at Cascades, now to Lakeside. Bear in mind, with that open pit strategy, there still is going to be at least some semblance of a strategy on the table here. It will still be paramount for adaptability and firm fleet of foot control of one's vehicle in success stories today. We've seen already, pace alone can carve quite a ways in, but when or if the rain starts falling, what do you do then? I imagine that is the question we wonder right now out of the leading McLarens. But we saw already they didn't exactly appear in the top 10 by chance. It was a brutal pole position lap by Massimo Benedetti. See Van Veltsen taking a little bit of grass there on the inside of his lops. LeBay still on his tail. In the background there, we can see Mason and Vermaak are getting closer and closer and closer. So do expect a fight for the top 5 coming up very, very soon. Out through Druids then, towards turn 16. These two have kept things very, very calm, very, very content. They are relaxed. You're not seeing a super stressed drive right now between LeBay and Van Veltsen. These are two drivers performing at peak efficiency on their way to Old Hall at turn 1. V8 versus V12. The latest car to be added to ACC versus one of the cars to have launched with the game so many years ago. And a car itself, the oldest, I believe, in GT3. Or at least one of the oldest. I believe this was up to 2013, if my memory serves correctly, that the V12 Vantage was kicking about, if not around that time as well. And kicking around at the same time as the early Gen AMGs and the Lexus RCF as well. As well as, who could forget, the Emil Frey Jaguar G5. Who could forget, or frankly, who wants to remember? Because the Aston, as you can see, was the vastly superior choice. So out through Britain's, down towards Hislops. Twin chicanes then of Sector 2 here, separated by that very short straight at Hilltop. Very calm stuff. We'll catch up with these two in a moment's time. Nothing looks to really be kicking off too soon. Don't want to speak too soon on that. We will stay around that area. As we see right now, the buffer zone between Mason and Vermaak is in the shape of David Silf. He's on a completely separate length of the race after quite the mixed bag of results, to say the least, for him and his contemporaries at MSA. Now looking to scramble and pick the pieces back up before 55 minutes run up, and the checkered flag is presented to them at the end of round 2. His teammate there, Kieran O'Reilly, really suffered the worst of it. A big lump of damage down at turn 4, and in much in same position as we've seen over the course of the race today. Super easy to lose grip down at turns 4 and 5, so he'll be biting his nails here at this section of the track. Very easy for things to go wrong. Manages to nail things in though on this lap. He's just settling into a nice rhythm here, hoping that fate pays back the same kind of justice to the rest of the grid as it did to him and his comrades at MSA. Milliston then down towards Britain's. 13 seconds clear of Van Veltsen, no imminent threat of ever losing that position out on track. But at the same time, it's a lonely drive here in the top 2 because the McLarens are separated by what seems like worlds apart between Benedetti and Milliston. We are at the precipice right now if things stay as they are for another 1-2 finish, and they'll match Aston Martin's title for that back in Bathurst. as being another manufacturer to make 1-2 finishes, both of them being trumped last round by Ford's 1-2-3, a historic first. There is the leading McLaren. And what else could really have been said so far that hasn't already been explicitly explained by the dominant performance today by Massimo Benedetti? Still 53.5 minutes left to go, but if this opening 37 minutes of racing, as a matter of fact, has been any indication, he shows no sign of stopping in the 210 in what is frankly one of the most remarkable entries I have ever seen. Now, you can make the argument with Rozhnov, it wasn't an easy fight to the top for Benedetti. From the word go here, he has vanished upfield, unrecognizable from the results we saw at the very waning end of qualifying today. This is pace truly, truly unshackled. A very raw drive by the 210. We're seeing right now what looks to be the suggestions here of a fight for 11th position. Bjorn Egil Kalsef with MSA versus Scott Milbank with K1. Behind them there, the lapped car, the 274 Mercedes of Kieran O'Reilly, and not too far away from those two either appears to be Melvin Milliston, looking to lap all three of these drivers on his way past. And that shows just how far up ahead those two McLarens are. These are the drivers just at the very back of the top 10. Milbank, Kalsef and Bond all separated by just about 5, maybe 6 seconds from front to back there. And they are already being caught up by the 68. They have already been caught by the leading 210, who has been a sort of lingering phantom of the grid here, because from the word go, no one's been able to stay with him. He has simply vanished into the aether after the lights went green and we went racing for the first time here at Oulton Park. And I have never seen the like. So we're back on board with the two we left off from last time, right at a flashpoint here past Druids for Cas van Velzen. Christian Lebay takes it the long way around the outside. It's contact, very, very minor contact between the pair of them. There is yellow flags out for the 69. That's Timothy Jolicoeur down at Britain's chicane, turn 7, 8 and 9. Actually could even be down at turn 4 there at that incredibly thin zone of the track. We're still watching that fight for third though right now for Cas van Velzen versus Christian Lebay. Very deep there into turn 3. It could be another opportunity here for Lebay. He's got slightly more manoeuvrability, pound for pound, corner for corner here on the Mustang of Cas van Velzen. It's super close as we go barreling down into turn 4. Van Velzen holds his nerve there, fends off the Aston on his way to turn 5 at Shell Oils. And this is truly remarkable stuff here. The yellow flags have been cleared for Sector 2 there. Jolicoeur is back up and running. He's already made his way down towards Druids Corner at turn 15 as we speak. Right now, our drivers making their way around the section of the track that brought it out in the first place. Turn 7, 8 and 9 at Britain's, now to Hislop's, turn 10 and 11. Not too far away, I should suggest as well, is James Mason, so do not rule him out on his chances of a podium today. These two would need only one more fierce white-knuckle fight here for that third position to invite the BMW to come and have a go for the podium. It seems right now all but secured for McLaren. Let's not speak too quickly on that, as we've seen already what chaos these races can bring our way. Dave Bond is into the pits then, the 107 in. And Axel Cassier, he's still in the session, but that 301 has been in the pits now for over 7 laps of this race. Functionally, he is out of round 2 of the championship in the 301 on a very, very somber note indeed. After that incident down at turn 16, that major incident between himself, Ivanov, and trying to remember which one it was now. I think it might have actually been Silf, as a matter of fact. Yes, one of the Mercedes cars with MSA. There's so many of them now. With MSA, it's a whole squadron of Mercs to keep track of. 49.5 minutes left to go then. We're still with Van Velzen and Lebay. The gap's opened up to a little bit wider now. A bit of breathing space allowed for the 420 to keep his charge lively for the last of those podium positions. Looking to pick up 2 podiums in a row here is only going to continue to reinforce his standing in the championship. Now, I should suggest as well, now not coming into effect right away, but the drop point system we discussed yesterday at the Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship does apply here to the Sunday League. So that will be coming in past round 3 in Silverstone when we leave Great Britain and head over to the Netherlands and Belgium and the Benelux region of Western Europe, heading over for rounds 4 and 5. That's when you'll start to see the effect take hold here. For Cas van Velzen, a story of consistency may initially sound like he's being punished if these best results are going to be your, thirds, your fourths, perhaps even your fifths. We don't know where things will stand at the end of Silverstone, but those will be the two results currently expunged. But as I explained yesterday, it's a cumulative system that'll follow our drivers after every round of the championship, making sure that at the end of the 10 rounds this season, it is the two worst results. If it happens to be a case that drivers have been consistently inside the top 5, then you could potentially see this as a hindrance. This has been the argument leveraged against the introduction of the drop point system, but I'd like to introduce the fact that this is designed for such freak accidents as we've seen today, for plenty of drivers who are looking quite hopeful at their chances of race victories or even podiums today in Oulton Park. So it's also designed against that, and it's designed against disconnects, which we've seen already has disadvantaged a few drivers. One driver who is able to really scrape his way past the monumental bullet that he has now dodged is Tyler Vermaak, who has now made his way to 5th, much to the chagrin of James Mason. And speaking of James Mason, let's get a gander around the field to see where, oh where, did K1's Wonder Child go. He was at the forefront of the point-scoring positions for K1 Esports and seemingly disappeared from that top 5. Let's see if we can go and find him. Right now, we can only see Cheeseman on the field. There's Mason. So he's taken a run through the pits there. And so it could be suggested. We didn't actually see exactly what he's had to have done to the car. He has emerged in 8th position. From where he was in 5th, could suggest a normal pit run there. A drive-through penalty doesn't seem likely, but of course we weren't keeping track of what was going on for Mason there. We were watching the fight up for 3rd on your screens here, now inheriting that 5th position. Looking at it there for a 20, and that would make a 30-second stop, I believe, thereabouts, for James Mason. That could be suggestive of a normal pit stop run. We see Scott Milbank, another one of the K1 cars, is into the pits right now. 46.5 minutes left to go. Now, drivers will be considering a myriad of strategy options in today's race, bringing up the timing charts right now. You can see where things stand as the drivers start to suggest that one voluntary move into the pits. Now, of course, none of these are mandatory pit lane runs, as we saw enforced back in Brands Hatch. This is an open field strategy. It allows drivers to really come through and push the ragged edge of what their machines are capable of. If they want to double stint, they can double stint. If they want to go the entire race, they can really dare to try it. An hour and a half of racing seems more than likely for some of these cars here on the grid, but of course, various different engines, various different fuel consumption rates. There will be drivers a little bit more paranoid than others than having enough fuel to get to the line here. Others may be so confident. 3/4 of an hour then left to go in this race. As the weather radars show at the moment for us here, no imminent threat of rain in the next 30 minutes. So this is spelling a pretty good sign for our drivers currently up inside the top 10. There'll be no imminent threat of having to come into the pits, change onto those wet tyres, and have to consider considerable losses in overall grip. Melvin Milliston, though, the car in 2nd place, is into the pit lane. You can see from the perspective there, Cassier and Jolicoeur, 2 of the Malois Mustangs that are now in the pits as well. Having a look around the field. So Milliston comes in, but the leading car of Benedetti does not. The yellow flags come out, and it's for the 27 of, I believe that's Ronaldo Jr. again there. Now out through turn 3 at Cascades. Just going to quickly check to see what is the current condition of the 27 car. Menus are absolutely horrible to navigate. So there is Ronaldo Jr. Now, is there damage on that McLaren? We're at the halfway mark of this race, and already the pit lane is getting livelier and livelier. We've just seen on our radars there, the number 1 came into the pits. That was Diman Ivanov with BMW. The green flag's now back out into Sector 2. Ronaldo Jr. is back up and running. Cas van Velzen now finds his way up to 2nd, so he's back where he started it. And Tyler Vermaak has made his way to the top 3. And that's because Christian Lebay has now just made a run through the pit lane, and so too has Diman Ivanov. Those two were fierce rivals over the course of last season. All 3 of them found their way into the 3-way split for the championship of Season 2. Ultimately, it went to the number 33 Lexus of Jason Bush. LeBay, though, emerges just ahead of James Mason. Now, that is incredibly thin margins there for a pit exit, had ever I seen one for LeBay. Mason right on the rear bumper there. A little bit of a step of oversteer on entry. It's a little bit wily for the newer BMW. Now, we know how sharp that turn-in can be on the M4. We were not expecting the car to actually be worse off in a corner like that than the older machine from Aston Martin. We do see up ahead there a car having to cut the road. That's the 44 of Scott Milbank that's had to cut his way through Britain's. He does appear to have a little bit of damage there as well for good measure over the rear bumper. So that could be suggested he was in a fight with someone there and it has gone quite horribly wrong. Mason still right behind LeBay as we make our way through his lops at turn 11. No suggestion as to right now what the pit strategy is for the leading 210 McLaren of Massimo Benedetti. Cas van Velten maintains second, Vermaak third, Forrest fourth, Milliston down to fifth after his run through the pits. LeBay 20 seconds away from that McLaren. Quickly checking in here with Massimo Benedetti. What is the suggestion on a run into the pit lane? He knows the cars behind him have already done the same, so he would have had free rein to do so. Benedetti stays out for this lap. Milbank ahead of him at the moment, now lapping traffic. First Jolicoeur, now Milbank. He's done 16th position there, now 12th, not 12th, sorry, 13th flies ahead of him there. Let's see if we can catch on board behind him from the perspective of James Mason in the fight right now for what appears to be 6th position. And heading down into Cascades, you can see how nail-bitingly close that gap is getting between himself and the Aston Martin in front. Absolute millimetres there between the pair of them. That is almost asking for trouble. And you've seen how sharp the turn-in has been through turns 3 and 4. James Mason has been teetering fate here. Or tempting fate, as it were, as he makes his way now through turn 5. Really giving it 110% effort there with a BMW, and that car really does seem to be fighting him through the majority of those corners, running things wide. Then goes Scott Milbank to cut Britain's chicane. I believe that was in the efforts then to let LeBay and Mason roll on by without compromising their end of the race. Of course, Milbank and Mason, both parts of the K1 Esports team, not looking to intercede on his teammates' fight for the top 6. Let's stay on board then with James Mason. We do have yellow flags. That was after turn 13, the 44th Scott Milbank now having been towed to the pit lane. That could be potentially the end of the line there for Milbank. It was a series of misfortunate events, a series of unfortunate events for the 44 McLaren, and I think that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Camel's back? The straw that broke the camel's back versus through his slops. I think I'm genuinely having a little bit of a micro stroke there. I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm losing my marbles. That was the straw that broke the camel's back through his slops. You'd think 22 years speaking English and I would be able to get it right for an hour and a half at a time. You'd be surprised what desperation allows you to do. So, out through turn 4 we go at the island bend, down to Shell Oils, and it is incredibly close right now between LeBay and Mason. I think I know what caught me there. What was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back, as I said earlier there? There's a lot of L's here, a lot of L's. So we're seeing, you've got Hislops. So we're looking at the section of the track we were covering there. We have Hilltop, Hislops, and we're talking about Christian LeBay fighting here with James Mason. Whole thing's a tongue twister. 0.6 of a second then between the pair of them. I've noticed that in the last couple of days. I don't know if how many of you have been picking up on the fact that I'm just slowly losing the plot here in my ability to speak English. It is getting a little bit wearing. Well, we've come off the back of yesterday's production, which was a fantastic race, despite a small grid in the solo multi-class endurance championship. And I think it's genuinely just getting to be a little bit of fatigue here in the commentary box. We've been at this for quite some time. Just got word there now from the lead of this race that Massimo Benedetti into the pit lane from the race lead. Number 210 now in, capitalising there on a massive gap he has been able to pull from not only Melvin Milliston, who previously held on to second, but the driver now in second. Malwar Racing's Tyler Vermack, who just picked up another drive-through penalty. So I spoke about this yesterday. He keeps flying too close to the sun, this one, and his wings will only continue to melt. It happened in Misano. Now it happens in Oulton Park. Vermack simply just cannot escape the wrath of the stewards. It can't keep going on like this, can it, for the Malwar team? It gets to a point you really got to start feeling a bit sorry for them here, because they put an absolutely flawless drive in, courtesy of Vermack, and also from Byron Forrest for that matter. I'd definitely say it has been a very solid, if understated, drive by the American in the 824. Racing with homebred machinery there. From the Motor City, from Detroit, the 7th generation Ford Mustang, and Byron Forrest behind the wheel. You really got to start feeling a little bit sorry here for Malwar, because they have tried and tried and tried, and things just keep coming asunder. Forrest right now is one of two hopes here for high point scoring positions. Vermack is going to have to consider his odds on the run into the pit lane as soon as possible if he means to salvage where he is on track. I would like to point out as well that Massimo Benedetti is on the bookings right now for a Grand Slam performance, as coming out of the pits here, 32 laps into this race, 37 just under 38 minutes before the checkered flag, he still leads. Not a single driver has found their way out in front of Benedetti. Nobody knows besides us here what the front of that car looks like until it's too late. So right now, as it stands, 37.5 minutes left to go. Benedetti leads, Vermack second, but with a drive-through penalty, looks to forfeit that to teammate Byron Forrest in third, Milliston in fourth, Van Veltzen in fifth. Lebay, having dropped behind Zoays there, is now in sixth and has to start considering his odds here to defend from K1's James Mason. We did discuss that earlier on. Diman Ivanov in 8th position. David Silva in 9th, and Bjorn Egil Kalsef on a comeback drive there. Remarkable stuff there by the Norwegian driver. He's in 10th position now on a recovery from where he was. He was towards the back of the grid at one point. The 977 found his way into trouble on a multitude of occasions, as too did his compatriots at Mercedes and MSA. That car seems almost cursed here, I dare say it. Further down the order, Kevin Quain in 11th, Ben Cheeseman 12th, Kieran O'Reilly in 13th, Dave Bond 14th, Timothy Jolicoeur in 15th, Ronaldo Jr. in 16th, Axel Cassier provisionally out of this race. He's among several drivers to have done so today. It has been quite the knee slapper here in Oulton Park. A lot of people have really struggled under these conditions. Not these two, however. James Mason, a diamond in the rough here against Christian Lebay, Season 1's champion. Now, these two drivers have competed from the word go. They have been around since Season 1. You are looking at two veterans here of Sunday League. Admittedly, veterans in the more figurative sense. It's 2 seasons. We've been doing this for about half a year. It's not as long as, say, like, I don't know, Formula 1 or Le Mans or Indianapolis, something like that. Take your pick, really. But these two are giving us an absolute treat here with 35, just under 36 minutes left to go. We saw a little bit of dust there sprinkled up in the face of the Aston and the BMW. That was from Cas Van Veltzen up ahead there in the top 5. And the number 424 Mustang, he is a ways back after those pit stops. He was looking there at his chances to be on the podium. That could still yet arrive for him here, so don't count him out of that one. And neither count either of these two out of their chances of a podium either. It seems to be a bit of a proverbial Wild West here in the midways of the top 10 as to who could come out on top on the last of those podium positions, because it seems a story of almost iron vice control here for those McLarens. Melvin Milliston's on his way to it. Vermack has still yet to take a proper pit stop, and oh my word, oh dear, I think I might know what's happening here, because I've seen quite a few drivers just disconnect. Among them, yes, oh dearie me, that. Okay, well, bear with us for a second here, folks. It does look like we may have a potential run of red flags here. Now, I don't want to speak too early, but I know what a disconnect wave looks like, and it looks like one is starting. We've already lost there quite a few of the leading drivers. It has now painted a brand new picture. Tyler Vermack leads this race after those disconnects. And there's Melvin Milliston now having made his way into frame here. Byron Forrest rejoins the session. Christian Lebay in 4th, Mason 5th. It's looking uncertain here. G-Portal looks to be striking again, and I don't particularly like the look of it. There's Cas van Veltzen. He's rejoined the session from 8th position. Oh, Byron Forrest was just at a pit stop. That wasn't... He didn't even disconnect. He's still been here the entire time. And there... I don't believe what I'm seeing here. That's Massimo Benedetti, and he's still in the lead. He's reconnected to the session. Now, admittedly, his controls for rejoining the session, I'm pretty sure, are going to be locked for upwards of 2 minutes here. But so there's the confirmation. Vermac now leads Benedetti in second. Ooh, it is not looking grand here. I mean, fair play. A lot of these drivers are making their way back in, but I am somewhat buying some time here before we get the announcement as to whether or not the race will be red flagged after those disconnects. Now, we still have the bulk of the grid, but a lot of drivers are not going to be happy. Among them, you could definitely make the argument, is Massimo Benedetti in the 210. He did just drop off the jacks there on the McLaren, so it could suggest that he is not far from leaving the pit lane. That's the same story right now for Cas van Veltzen in the 420 Mustang. That was among the 2 drivers to have disconnected there. That really did look like it. I don't want to speak too soon on it just yet, but it has shaken things up quite massively because of those 2 disconnects. 2 serious heavy hitters there, Van Veltzen and Benedetti. Milliston's now up to second once more. Vermac is only 4.6 seconds up the field from him, now leading this race. Christian Lebay finds his way to the podium. James Mason's 1.3 seconds behind and fighting for one of his very own. And Byron Forrest makes his way to the top 5. Diman Ivanov, having been pushed up now to 6th, Silph's up to 7th. Benedetti is going to keep dropping positions here before he's allowed back out on track. Same story as well for Cas van Veltzen. Right now he's 8th, soon to potentially drop to 9th position. Kevin Quain, the next driver to potentially take that off him, has done so. And Ben Cheeseman likely to do the same. So it is a bit of a tough situation here. That's not a lot that the race control team can do about it. That's simply just G-Portal. I lack the vernacular to tell you it nicely, so I'm not even going to bother saying it. But doing something to the bed, let's put it that way. But Massimo Benedetti, I want to point this out, has 32 minutes left to go. Has re-entered this. He has lost his chance of a Grand Slam, but has not lost his chance of a solid result. He still holds the fastest lap and re-emerges in 10th. Cas van Veltzen joins him there from 14th, as we see now an update. So the odds now ever stacked against Benedetti. Now 12th. So is it only going to keep getting worse here? Because if we get a look here for the leading cars, so 36 laps at the moment in our top 3. And then we go and check with Benedetti. So he's down 2 laps. I am not sure. I mean, he has been a miracle worker for the just under actually an hour of racing here, but for well over an hour across the session here, qualifying and the race itself. I don't know if he has the chance here to make this a solid result. I will be absolutely flabbergasted if he can. Never say never on that front. He's down, but he is not out. We really would have thought that would have been the towel in for both Van Veltzen and Benedetti, but they've shown us their ruthless determination to make ends meet in the Sunday League. And honestly, you just got to respect a performance like that because they are not giving up. Number 420 is into the pits right now, so it appears, and that is Cas van Veltzen. We can see that. Oh, no. I believe Van Veltzen that may be it for him there. He's in 15th. He's plumb last of the race. I think that might be him throwing in the towel. 420 at the moment, having come to a stop, and I believe the 420 is now out of this race. So that is a sad note to remiss on there for Cas van Veltzen. Started second in this race. Absolutely nothing he could have done there to stop that disconnect. And really now we've just got to hope in the next 30 minutes nothing else happens to take more drivers out of competition here. Because already things have been not so great in terms of connectivity. See right now, Massimo Benedetti, he's 20 seconds away from the nearest position on track. That's 11th place, courtesy of the 107 BMW of Dave Bond. He's got 29.5 minutes to make an extra position here. I don't know. It is for the first time I am properly stumped as to what exactly do I say in a situation like this. Very little strikes my mind on that matter. Jason Bush in chat. I take that back. I'm glad I didn't get to race today and then be disappointed by getting disconnected. I think really right now what we're seeing, I've seen this across various different series, and I think some series have definitely caught flack more so than others for something that right now doesn't appear to be within anyone's control. And that is just the pure fragility and frankly outdated nature of the G-Portal servers on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Now, it definitely is a case here. The game is just starting to show real signs of age. Now, Assetto Corsa Competizione is not exactly a brand new game. I wouldn't say it's not retro. I mean, you're not getting towards iRacing here where it came out like 06, 07. But having a look at Assetto Corsa Competizione, the game released just about here, originally for Windows on the 29th of May 2019. So we're looking at a 6-year-old game here, 6-year-old infrastructure for what is less than first-party developed software. This doesn't have the same kind of security and funding you get from your Gran Turismo or your Forza Motorsport. I mean, that's a bit of a rich statement now, isn't it? Because all of them have been laid off at Turn 10 and Motorsport's been shelved. But I'd say more realistically than your Forza Horizons, you don't have the same kind of funding, backing and infrastructure that Kunos seems to have at the moment. With 505 Games, you know, they're doing what they can here. They set another team in charge to help the console port. The game was originally only ever designed for PC. It made its way onto consoles the year after in June of 2020, and then onto next generation consoles today in 2022. So it's 3-year-old and already outdated infrastructure. Now, there are plenty of remarks as to who is next onto the mantle of the next big thing for console. Now, there are a lot of brands I could throw in your direction. 2 that stand out the most to me, actually 3 that stand out the most to me right now. The upcoming NASCAR game being developed by the iRacing developers, which is set potentially for a console release. I believe they will be trying to patch that out to console. It'll be going to PC first and foremost, like most of these sim racing games nowadays. There is also the currently not confirmed date, but they know it's going to happen, console port release of Le Mans Ultimate, and then Project Motor Racing. Those are 3 games right now that could stand to be in that position somewhere down the line. Now, these are a monstrous set of boots for these developers to fill. And I'm not going to say right here and now that it's an easy road for any of these developers, I should say. For the drivers right now, they're actually having a bit more of a relaxed ending to this race. Christian Lebay is now up into 2nd in this race. Vermac now down to 6th. And Milliston leads the charge. This could be his first victory here in a Sunday League since round 1 last season at Spa-Francorchamps. So that is a long time coming for Melvin Milliston. He stuck it out for the long run here. And the driver who held this race with such ruthless command had that race taken off of him by the very same problem now plaguing this once great game, and that is those god-awful G-Portal connectivities. That server, I don't know what we're doing really at this point. The NLRL guys, they are doing absolutely everything they can, and I'll stick my neck out there and say that yes, they are doing absolutely everything they can to make this as good for these drivers, but ultimately they can't control what a server does, and it's peer-to-peer connection, if I'm not mistaken, for ACC, and it's just outdated. The multiplayer for it just no longer works. It doesn't matter what echelon of esports you end up playing here on console. I imagine even in the upcoming AMG Virtual Championships, of which actually I know a few of the drivers entering that at the end of this month, they're probably going to find that problem as well. It is now more than ever a hard-baked hardware issue. We're seeing right now Massimo Benedetti have a look here for 11th position on Dave Bond. We'll stay on board here with the fight for 11th position. Let's stay here with the McLaren. Benedetti there, my mistake. Going down the inside at turn 15. That is incredibly thin stuff there for Benedetti. trying his luck down towards turn 16. He's got that one wrapped up nice and neat and tidy there. Very, very well done to him on the run of that lap. So back onto that discussion with Assetto Corsa Competizione. I mean, it is a fantastic game. I'm not going to sit here and say that ACC is utter trash and it's got nothing on you know, its contemporaries in the hardcore sim market or getting up towards that hardcore sim market. Now, don't get me wrong, it's no iRacing. But that's because iRacing isn't trying to be like anyone else. ACC is the more hardcore version of standard Assetto Corsa. It was one focused in that niche direction of the SRO GT World Challenge series. The Fanatec GT World Challenge and the various contemporary series that have now been added over the course of this, including, you know, GT2, GT4, British GT, Intercontinental GT, American GT, so on and so forth. It is a great game, but it is let down by just poor servers. And that's none of the league's fault, I wouldn't say. I don't think that's any of the team's fault. It is just simply a fact that what we are being given here on console is not enough, because at the end of the day, most sim racing developers, and this might come as a bit of a truth nuke to some people, sim racing developers do not care about console players at all. They could not care less. As a matter of fact, the last time anyone in the higher echelons of esports or anything of the sort gave that much about the console racing community, it was back when it was possibly your only available choice. So this would have been like your Gran Turismos at that point. This would have been like your early 2010s. iRacing was still on the up, but still there are a lot of manufacturer and esports administration support was going into console. That was the last time I think these drivers had it good, and we had good infrastructure. We had a lot of high quality tournaments coming out at that time as well. Possibly some of the most famous tournaments as well for esports in sim racing was coming out of the 2010s. What we're seeing right now is this very stagnant period for console sim racing. It's the most accessible front for sim racers. Not everyone possesses the money to go out and buy a 4-figure gaming PC and then splash another 4 figures on a hardcore sim racing rig. Completely, you've got to pay individually for these parts as well. None of this comes pre-packaged. You've got to buy the parts in, you've got to order the parts, usually from Germany as well, then pay import tariffs if you're living in the United States. It becomes such a costly thing. You'd hope there would still be something out there for the console players, for the ones who want to plug and play. But the case is, sim racing devs just do not care. And they care just enough to give you the servers, but that's it. Most of their interest and support is on PC, and that's just not anyone's fault anymore. Because it was always going to go in that direction, I think. See as well, so now getting back off of that tirade about the current state of the game, whether or not the game is truly gone. We are here with Ronaldo Jr. and Christian Lebay. Ronaldo Jr. looks like to have damage. I believe this might be his 3rd or 4th time now experiencing damage this race. It's not been a fantastic one, but he is looking to take this all the way to the checkered flag. I am staggered, by the way, that Massimo Benedetti re-entered this race and has managed to even gain 1 position against odds such as these. I mean, say what you will of Tyler Vermack's performance. He started 22nd, he's up in 6th. That is fantastic, but it is a tough coin toss between himself and Massimo Benedetti. Now, considering that Benedetti hasn't gone on to lead every lap of this race and is now playing against odds most drivers would just simply throw the towel in for, I am staggered by the resolve of that 210. It doesn't look even phased by what's happened. That's almost the same flying pace that he's been leading that race with. So hats off, really, to Benedetti. That is brutal. That is possibly the best word I can use to describe a driver like this, because I have very little on his profile. I do not know much about this Massimo Benedetti. This is my first time encountering him, as I imagine it is for a lot of you viewing at home. And this driver, I must say, is remarkable. That's no critique of anyone else on the grid, but very rare do you see situations such as these where a driver was dominating for that long, has a disconnect, and is scratching at a top 10 with 19 minutes to go. That is unheard of in most leagues. That would be something you see out of, to give an example, a 24-hour race. This has been an hour and a half for today's race, and we are seeing comebacks like this. So, frankly, I am astonished. Though it may not have been the day to remember for a lot of our drivers. As we mentioned, that drop point system will be doing them a solid at the end of Silverstone at round 3 when it's introduced for round 4 and beyond. It will be doing them a great service there to scrape up some of the less ideal results. That is what this is all about. And it is a pity that it's come to this, that we've had to introduce a drop point system. But this wasn't exactly something we had to force on the paddock. It was a 90% favourable vote. 28 votes for against 3 votes against. So I really don't think that the drivers are going to be lamenting the introduction of a drop point system. Yes, it makes the standings a bit of a ball ache to comprehend, and don't get me wrong, the logistics of it had my brain all warped out of shape when I first saw it, but I think this is for the better now. This is a preventative that I think more leagues are going to have to take under their belt if they mean to continue working on ACC, and we know from intel at the moment that our sponsors at Malwar look to be potentially following us into PC racing in the future, and if they don't, we are looking to, expand our efforts here on TRTM. We do want to make that leap over onto PC because, don't get me wrong, from a commentator's perspective and as an individual, I started my career right here on Xbox. I started on F1 2021 with my friend, and it was a humble beginning. We were just doing it for fun to promote the league that we were running, and sadly, it seems now, all those years later, I'm witnessing the death of the beloved game here on console, and I think we're being left behind. And I think ACC is one of those final bastions we have on console for PlayStation and for Xbox, for races to come along and to feel the game as if it were real. You know, this is the closest thing we get on console to something as hardcore as iRacing. That's the event horizon every sim racer will eventually cross if they continue down this path. It is an almost inevitability that you will start playing iRacing. I'm surprised I haven't, but I just backed out of competition early because I love what I do here, and I know I am nowhere near fast enough to even bother with iRacing. And I do pray for salvation then from Le Mans Ultimate, because that is really, I think, the saviour console needs, and it cannot arrive soon enough, because unless they really snap themselves together here, I don't see ACC surviving in the next couple of years. The player base is starting to fall off. Frustration is on the rise. Smaller leagues are struggling to stay afloat because of such poor infrastructure as this. You don't get these problems on PC. When have you heard of problems like this on PC? I think the last time we had a major upset with a game's connectivity problems. Oh, as we can see, actually, that was dust being kicked up there in the face of Ben Cheeseman. That was from the 107. Of Dave Bond. Oh, actually, not fortunately there. That looks like damage for the 107. That could get nasty. That could get very, very nasty. That could be one more run into the pits there in the next 16 minutes of racing. I do apologize that I feel like this stream has been temporarily hijacked by the real negative point that a lot of these drivers have suffered today, of just another example of G-Portal ruining great races. And bear in mind, from what I've been able to scrape together online, there is still supposedly, now take this with a massive grain of salt, but apparently one more major content update scheduled for ACC. They're not saying when it's coming, and only saying that it'll be 3 cars and 3 tracks. Speculation right now has it rumored that at least 2 of those tracks could be Sebring and Jeddah. And this is to reflect what was going on in the 2024 GT World Challenge Series, and also in the US as well with Sebring. They're speculating the cars that could arrive could be the Aston Evo. So the Aston Martin Vantage Evo, the new shape one that you see right now in Le Mans Ultimate, and the one that has been racing around the world over the course of the last year. You could also be seeing either the RCF Evo, which took its maiden WEC win, by the way, over in Sao Paulo this year. It's a fantastic job by the Acadist team. And also the rumour has it that Corvette could be making their way in as well. The C8 GT3 has been making the rounds. And personally, I hope that this game does get one more update, and they do show the love that I think this game does deserve, because right now I think the only thing keeping this game afloat are the players. And I'm even astonished as well. I've been researching recently and this is the last I'll say on it. We'll get to this point and then we'll just continue on with the race. I wanted to get this rant out of the way because it is lovely to have these interactions with the viewers at home, and also just voice my opinion as someone who's been in the console commentary game now for what I feel like is a decent while to see this play out in real time. The last thing I say, I've been researching some of the major tournaments coming up to involve ACC. One of them coming up at the end of the month is the Mercedes Virtual Championship, and that's run by Mercedes AMG through SimGrid, and they have a console ACC division, and I do fear for its safety because really, if even the top end of console leagues right now, because I believe we're having these same problems even at the top end of things in console and even towards the bottom end of PC, if we're still having this problem now, what's it going to look like in the face of an official event? And I think they're among the final official groups really to care for console at this point. I think we're slowly losing track of where console stands in the sim racing community. I think a lot of people, they tend to forget this is the ground floor. This is like how karting is to a major motorsports career. These are the baby steps that blossom into a great career in esports. This is usually where it starts out. It's either here or it's on, you know, much more humble beginnings. You could even say back in the original Assetto Corsa. I mean, that's where a lot of people I know started out, was in the original Assetto Corsa, in the MX-5 Cups. I mean, that's where I was able to race over on TRR. And I feel like there needs to be a great revival, as it were, for this game, for the love this game gets and for the support it needs in order to stay with us, because it is a fantastic game. As mentioned, it is a fantastic game, and it pains me to see what it's become with these servers. And that's none of these organizations' fault. It's none of the race control's fault. They're doing everything they can. We are running with servers that are simply just not good enough. And that's where I'll leave that point. It's 12.5 minutes then left to go in today's race. And looking at the standings then, Melvin Milliston leads the charge in the number 68 McLaren after a massive shake-up of disconnects at the midway, with only a few more minutes left in it for today's race. Christian Lebay maintains his position on the top row there, on the second step of the podium. But on that top row, he has had a remarkable turnaround in today's performance, that 119. He was towards the back of the top 10 when he started things off here at Oulton Park. He's not going to be arguing with where he's at the moment. Can I see that is damage there in front for the 114 of Ben Cheeseman in 8th position? More onto that in a moment. James Mason, his teammate at K1 Esports, who just made his way. That was one of the best transitions, by the way, I think I've ever seen in my life, from the McLaren over to the BMW. But here's the point. James Mason in the 413 is in third, looking to pick up a podium then for the K1 Esports team. Amidst the very bizarre conditions today's race has brought to this grid, K1 won't be arguing with the opportunity here to take home solid points after Brands Hatch. Byron Forrest with the Malwar team looks to make the second of two of the highest scoring positions. That's what will contribute to the team's championship come round 3 at Silverstone. He's in 4th at the moment, not too far away at all. Was one of the likely candidates for driver of the day. He started in 22nd on this grid. It's Tyler Vermack. Despite his solid qualifying, a sudden disconnect between sessions put him towards the back of the field, but he has not taken this sitting down. To him, it was a personal affair, and now he finds his way in the top 5. So really hats off to him there. He's a very, very likely candidate for today's driver of the day pick. In 6th position right now, D-Man Ivanov in the number 1 is fought thick and thin for his position on track, and that's the same story for David Silf with MSA. The 443 is among the last left of the MSA group, as they have suffered quite the slaughter here in Oulton Park. It has not been an easy one. Ben Cheeseman, who we saw damage on there, is now on his way down towards turn 4. See if we can get a look over the nose. He's just maintaining that damage now. I think he's just in for the long run here. 10 minutes to the line. I don't think he wants any more runs to the pit lane. He just wants to bring home a top 10 finish at the back of that top 10. And gaining steam in 9th position right now, Kevin Quain with Malwar, and Kieran O'Reilly in the 274, not too far away at all from the injured McLaren of Cheeseman. Then Massimo Benedetti. What is there to say then
on what a peculiar performance this man has experienced today. Up until his disconnect, had led every single lap of the race, even performing a very ultra rare overcut pit stop strategy in the open field strategy of today's endurance race. He has led the field almost uncontested, and dare I say it, he's 9.4 seconds and 9.5 minutes to go. He needs to make a little over 1.5 seconds per lap here. So I'd say even 2 seconds per lap. Now, if he means to catch Kieran O'Reilly and make a top 10 finish, he still, after all things said and done, maintains the fastest lap of today's race. So it is not off the table. That could be one to watch then before the checkered flag. Dave Bond then in 12th position in the 107 Jolicoeur, in 13th. And then after the mass wipeouts we've seen today, the last of the drivers on track at the moment, Ronaldo Jr. in the number 27. We see here at the moment, Junior's just been caught up by Tyler Vermack. He's just let him by there through Lakeside. So very well done there by Ronaldo Jr. Now 2.1, now 2 seconds as a matter of fact. We could be seeing a potential fight here amongst teammates of the Malwar Racing team. Between Tyler Vermack, as you see, just a little stab of oversteer past turn 5. Nothing too crazy for Ronaldo Jr. He's been able to stay on track there in the number 27 to make our way into Britain's. Still, like Cheeseman, he is nursing damage there on that McLaren. We could potentially see a little scramble here for positions between teammates. Byron Forrest, one of the newer drivers to join the Malwar Racing team, and Tyler Vermack, one of the more decisive signings for the Canadian team. Could be duking it out on track. Now, Vermack doesn't show any real signs of slowing down. Much appreciated there from Jason Bush in chat. Great commentary per the usual, and no commentator curses have happened today. Oh, please don't speak too soon on that, because James Mason, yeah, you see, it wasn't me who cursed him this time. See, that was you. That was you that did that. Because James Mason now has a drive-through penalty. It's horribly timed. Oh gosh, that is horribly timed. James Mason has a drive-through penalty. Now, admittedly, with the very short run through the pits, is there even the remote possibility now, with 7 minutes against the line here, that he could take this pit stop with 18 seconds between himself and Byron Forrest in 4th to potentially have a stab here of a super late run through? Maybe just able to get things through in time here. It is incredibly short, that pit lane, and moreover, it takes you on the run down towards turn 2, if I'm not mistaken there. So Mason's going to be angling himself for it. He's up through Clay Hill now at turn 13. Let's stay on board with James Mason, because we are curious to see where the story unfolds. James Mason now on his way through Druids. Now to turn 16, a drive-through penalty to serve. This could be potentially deciding of a podium here for K1. He's played his cards very, very close to his chest here, but now has got to make the ultimate decision, soaring into a very short run to the pits. That is dangerously close to an overspeed there for James Mason. He's doing the drive-through. 18 seconds starts to tick away. Byron Forrest is closing the gap. He's out through turn 16 right now. James Mason's still on his way through the pits. You can see the pit limiter lines. It might just be close enough for him. What a drive there. That was very well placed. Now what he's got to do, keep his head low and out of trouble for the next 5 minutes. He's done a very good job of that there. Ooh, sigh of relief from us, and I imagine from him as well. As we see in the background, Vermack gets caught up there amongst the fray between himself, Quain, and Cheeseman in their fight as it's contact behind him. Cheeseman's into the wall. Oh my goodness. Against the tyres. That was absolutely brutal. Getting a look at that on the replay, that looked very, very strong there between those two. Vermack tries to thread the needle. Quain slams back in behind. I don't think he sees Cheeseman. You see the contact there. Or maybe it's a case where Cheeseman's run out wide, but oh, it's just properly dug in against the tyre wall. Out through turn 3. Tyler Vermack maintains 5th. Byron Forrest maintains 4th. James Mason, by the skin of his teeth right now, maintains a podium. As you can see, 3.3 seconds is that gap. Just a little under 5 minutes to go. It's very, very close to the line here. I don't want to call anything too early, but what has happened here for Ben Cheeseman, that could be him down and out of the race with very little time left to go. A very bitter note to round things off, but what it has given is Massimo Benedetti his chance of a top 10. What a turnaround then for Benedetti. He's up past Junior. Kieran O'Reilly is only 2.7 seconds up the field, so do not count out the chance of a top 9 fight for Benedetti. Oh, in the background as well, Junior into the wall at Druids. Another driver caught out. As we see there, just in the foreground, we watch here. This is with Massimo Benedetti on his way down through turn 15. That double apex, you see, he already goes wide. In the foreground, slams it there against the rear left. That's not gone well for Ronaldo Junior. A note to leave off on then for this race. Ivanov given a drive-through penalty there after Old Hall. So another driver caught out there at this leg of the race. O'Reilly is vulnerable, 1.8 seconds and dropping. We'll stay on board with Massimo Benedetti. This could be one of the greatest final battles we may be presented with, especially given the point where he's come from here. He was almost down and out of today's race. He led at every lap up until his disconnect, but he has come back into the competition, both arms swinging, all 8 cylinders firing. What a drive, and it is not over yet. We stay on board here with Massimo Benedetti. Having a look on the wider scale of things here. 3 minutes left to go. Milliston leads from LeBay. Then James Mason emerges by the skin of his teeth here. Vermack has the possibility to fight with his teammate. Byron Forrest in 4th. D-Man Ivanov seems to be down and out of action here. That could be a free position for David Silf and for potentially even Kevin Quain here. And I don't think the ripple effect will be felt so far down to where it reaches Benedetti at the moment. But do make very good note of it here. Is in a very likely position to be fighting for 9th position in a moment's time. This could get very exciting. So we now start to speculate over what are the proceedings for a fight of 9th position here for Massimo Benedetti. He's hunting down Kieran O'Reilly's Mercedes, and he's just not lost any kind of steam whatsoever. We're 53 laps in here on the endurance round 2 of the championship here in the Sunday League on unprecedented circumstances. And yet, despite all of that, he has risen from the ashes here to fight for 9th and even potentially for 8th there, because within a hair's width of O'Reilly is Kevin Quain in front of him in 8th position. So dare I say here, Massimo Benedetti has the opportunity to finish not only inside of the top 10, but inside of the top 8. More to follow though, because right up ahead of him you can see O'Reilly and Quain are looking to size up some side-by-side action on their way to Hislops. Here we go, turn 10, now turn 11. The Mustang ahead of the Mercedes is holding him up though as we make our way to turn 12. Out to turn 13, you can see just how much more force Benedetti's able to give his McLaren here. That thing is set up to an absolute T, trying his way around the outside of Kieran O'Reilly in his fight for 9th position. This could be absolutely everything down to the wire here. Almost side-by-side contact between Quain and O'Reilly. O'Reilly's up and ahead there, up into 8th position on his way down towards turn 16, but looking for his way through. Where does he find it? There at the apex of turn 16. Kevin Quain gets overtaken by Massimo Benedetti. Now on his pursuit of Kieran O'Reilly for 8th position. He's past 9th. Now comes the fight for 8th position on the final laps of today's race. This is going all the way down to the wire. That is not to overshadow what a feat it has been today for Melvin Milliston. He looks to take home, as it stands right now, his third win. He's got one every season here. He won in Red Bull Ring. He won in Spa. He looks to win in Oulton soon, but our eyes are still glued to the drive here of the 210, and we'll keep it all the way to the very end here with only mere seconds left to go. Massimo Benedetti chasing Kieran O'Reilly. We will have to check in now in the final 10 seconds with Melvin Milliston.
as he heads down towards the line. He won in Red Bull Ring, he won in Spa, 3 seasons on the trot, and a win for every single one of them. Melvin Milliston wins in Oulton Park. Absolutely brilliant, brilliant stuff there. Unbelievable. The checkered flag out for the McLaren, but let's see, does the needle drop for a performance to 8th for Massimo Benedetti? Christian Lebay in 2nd, his joint best result of his Sunday League career there. James Mason picks up what looks to be 3rd. We'll quickly check to the line here because it's all the way to the checkered flag. Actually, as a matter of fact, Byron Forrest drops his way back. Vermack's up ahead of what appears to be his teammate there. A little bit of a scramble inside of that top 5. Vermack 4th. Let's see, down to the line, all for naught here, but at the very, very closing lap of this race, despite everything he could have done there, Kieran O'Reilly takes 8th, Massimo Benedetti in 9th position. What a comeback he's experienced, and that, I can't tell if that was a relief or frustration, maybe just a little bit of both. D-Man Ivanov to the line then, after that drive-through penalty, drops 1 position to Silf to finish 7th. Ronaldo Jr. to the line there, looks for 14th, and now you'll be able to scale up the death toll we've experienced. Van Veltzen, Kalseth, Milbank, Carlos, Hooper, how do you... It is, give me one moment. That's my mistake there to Philip Shantz. That's what it is. I've been struggling with that name there. Shantz, Cassier, Snai was in this race. I didn't even know Dimitri Snai signed up for the... Oh, wait, no, that's a mistake. He did sign up. I don't know he signed up for this round, is what I'm thinking here. I know he signed up for Sunday League. I don't know he signed up for this round. We also have, Jan Willem Bos there, DNS in the number 100. He was late to qualifying and just didn't end up starting the race. And same story for Denver LeBlanc. We'll be seeing those two hopefully in Silverstone. What a result we have seen today then. Hats off to Melvin Milliston, and a very well done as well to Massimo Benedetti. It may not have been the race to remember, but a proper story of grit and comeback there. We really thought him down and out after that disconnect, but he's proven us wrong there to finish inside the top 10, and once more as well with the fastest lap. On thoughts of what could have been, you really couldn't ask for a comeback better than that. I would say, really, now having thought about it for a little while longer, driver of the day goes to Tyler Vermack. It was a very close tie there at the very end between himself and Benedetti. Looking at what could have been done today, Benedetti put everything he could into his drive and really played against some uncertain odds. Tyler Vermack lost everything at the end of qualifying, had to start completely anew at the start of round 2. Went from 22nd to 4th. So that is the end of what has been a very peculiar, let's say it, round of the Sunday League. Definitely a lot to pick apart from there. A bit of a tirade in the middle about the state of the game so far, but I think moments like this is what makes all of it just that worthwhile here on console. These drivers, they are up against uncertain odds every time they get behind the wheel. And really, no better place is there on console than the Sunday League to show you exactly what the ethos of the console community is all about here. Well done then to the drivers who made it to the checkered flag, and well done to the drivers who stuck everything out there until those disconnects. We really can't blame you for the way things turned out after that. Some drivers stayed back in like Benedetti, others like Van Veltzen, totally understandable at the end of the day. The drop point system hopefully will be helping all of you out when it's introduced after Silverstone. Getting a look at the calendars here, of course, that'll be the next round of the championship on the 27th of July to bring us to the end of July. Heading into August, then we'll be over to Zandvoort and Spa, Valencia, and the Nürburgring and Monza before the end of August. That's all from us, though, on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. That's a wrap on this weekend's production, both solo, multi-class, and Sunday League. And now for some well-earned rest here over in the commentary box. But don't fret, we'll be back next Sunday, live as always. That's all from us, though, on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care, and good night.